study is finally finished. All over the place. Think of how many chats I've got to keep up with. If you wouldn't mind, mate, I think we had some issues with it last time, but I'll give it another go. Oh, awesome. I'll give it a go then, yeah.
Do you know what the most annoying thing is, right? And it really annoys me when I watch the stream. Dean's name.
Oh, it's lowercase, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and P17, that T Smith. Jesus Christ, it annoys me so much.
I am completely with you, mate. I hate it. I'm a real stickler for that sort of stuff, and it gets to me.
Every time I see it, I'm like, just change it.
Cheers, mate. I'll have a look. Thank you.
Media Monday.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Simsport Racing broadcast channel. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, or you're taking a slight bit of time out of your boring workday to watch us back after the live stream, thank you for attending and welcome back to round number 2 of the Simsport Racing GT3 Championship season number 7. It was the perfect start at Silverstone a fortnight ago for Robbie Stapleford. He took the win, pole position and fastest lap, and he's going to be looking for a repeat of that again this evening. We are found in Marseille this evening. We're at the Circuit de Paul Ricard. We're at the layout without the Mistral chicane, so the longest straight you will ever begin to imagine you've seen in your entire life. And we've got some brilliant racing coming up for you this evening. 20 minutes of qualifying, 90 minutes to race, a mandatory pit stop for tyres included in that as well, which is sure to make for some interesting strategic battles. My name is David Wressell. I'll be your lead commentator this evening, and I'm pleased to be joined by none other than a very, very impressive VTCC commentator, Chris Buxton. Chris, good evening to you, sir. Good of you to come along, and obviously first time commentating in these GT3s this season. How are you looking forward to things? Are you excited for this evening?
Your introduction is exemplary. Thank you kindly, good sir. Yes, GT3 was where I cut my commentary teeth 5.5 years ago. So they'll always have a special place in my heart. And let's be honest, they are some of the pinnacle of GT racing, no matter what your favorite manufacturer is, or whatever your circuit is. GT3 has almost certainly been there, and it has that kind of mystique about it that so many people love. This is going to be fantastic. Huge grids, door-to-door racing, let's have it. And Paul Ricard is a really challenging track for these cars, so I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, we've got that massive, enormous Mistral straight without the chicane halfway through. It's slipstream, especially in the likes of qualifying, is going to be really important tonight, isn't it? Do you think we're going to see some team orders, despite the fact we're only at round number 2 so far this season?
I'm not a fan of it personally. I hope we don't. I will understand if we do. It's one of those things. I would expect it towards the tail end of the season when the championship is there ready to be fought for. At this stage, I hope not. I really want to see everybody scrapping for every bit of circuit they can get hold of. But in the end, you know realistically who you're up against. You don't ever want to disadvantage your own team, so we might. I just hope we don't. Absolutely.
And speaking of title at the moment, we'll head over to the driver's standing so you can see exactly how they're sitting at the moment. As I mentioned, Robbie Stapleford with a perfect start at Silverstone, taking pole position, the fastest lap and the race win. It was a lights to flag victory for the Zancho Simsport man, defending his championship for the first time this season. Mantis Povolaitis came through in a surprising second place, a very good pace in the Porsche around Silverstone. He put a fantastic display on to get that result in the first round a couple of weeks ago. Regan Mitchell rounding out the top 3. Jonathan Seville had a couple of incidents throughout the race, was on for a top 2 at one point, but unfortunately dropped back to P4. Rich Smith and Chris Pinchbeck in the Simsport Golf Racing team finishing 5th and 6th, a strong first display for that team. Dean Riley, Kieran Vidago, Marcus Hagel and Rasmus Christensen rounding out the top 10. As far as the team standings go, it was a good start again. And like you say, obviously when you have your man win the first race of the season, Zancho Simsport are going to be off to a pretty good start, as you can see, sitting on 37 points this season. Milos Stamenkovic joining Robbie this season as well. Simsport Racing Apex of Regan Mitchell and Kieran Vidago coming through in second, and then the Golf Simsport Racing team of Dean Riley and Rich Smith coming through in third. Pulse JR Simsport in fourth of Beaver Grease Racing, the AMG version of that team, coming through in 5th. The Simada Racing team of Adam Asalovic and Simon Wilkes coming through joint in 5th and 6th place. Simsport Racing, SRBR, Shumi Getwassim and Pulse HD Simsport rounding out the top 10. We'll get on to qualifying in just a moment as the cars are out on track, but before we do that, let's take a quick look to see where we're going to be racing at tonight. As mentioned before, we are at the infamous Circuit de Paul Ricard. Not necessarily renowned for overtaking in the F1 world, but we'll certainly see plenty of that this evening. As you can see, as we go into that first sector, it really starts to close in. You've got that nice left chicane at the start. That's going to slow the cars down as they go. It's going to be interesting come the first lap or two. As you then go into the second sector, you have that enormous Mistral straight that we've talked about. As they then go into Bow at the back end of that, it's a real scene. They go into the third sector. It's a real split, isn't it, Chris? You've got a case of tight and twisty first sector, second sector, just get the anchors down and go for it, and then we're back to the twisties at the end of the lap. It's a real test for these drivers, this one, isn't it?
This is a real difficult one to make a setup for as well, because you want to have a car that's really strong in the twisties, as you explained there, David, but you've got this just forever lasting straight, the Mistral straight at the back end of the circuit, ending sector 2 and beginning sector 3. Slipstreaming is going to be, as you say, absolutely key along that straight, but they do not want to be setting up the car with just minimal wings. This is no Monza. Yeah, there are braking zones they have to deal with. Sector 3 is going to be an absolute pig for cars that are set up for higher end top speed. In saying that, if you of course put more downforce on the car, it's going to struggle at that all crucial back straight, and there's so much time to be gained or lost with a bad setup, particularly there. So again, may not be too much of an overtaking circuit in single seaters. The GT3s or GT cars in general, they're not afraid to get their elbows out. So I'm expecting to see some interesting moves. Obviously nothing dangerous or nothing untoward, but particularly in areas like coming through. I'm going to struggle with these corner names, but coming off the back straight, it's a little bit of a braking zone into that first right-hander, and then you've got this long over 180-degree right-hander. You're going to see some action down there. Certainly, sort of turn 3, which is the end, towards the end of sector 1, you're going to see some jostling going into that twisty section before the Mistral straight. Really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, and we're talking, Chris, about the fact that people might be taking some slightly different lines throughout the race. Let's jump on board with championship leader and reigning champion Robbie Stapleford for a hot lap around this circuit, so we can see exactly what we expect the perfect line to be. So it goes down the main straight, getting up towards 5th gear. You probably won't reach that at this point, braking at the 100-metre board into the variation chicane. He hits that curb on the inside. It can be one of those that can offset the car, especially this one on the outside. Got to be careful with track limits, go too wide, and that will invalidate your lap as well and give you a track cut warning for good measure as well as they come down towards Hotel. Always under braking here. It's a really difficult section to get right. You see dropping down to first gear, surprisingly. So he then goes into camp, and now it's really just about get the right exit as they go into Saint-Bomé and onto the Mistral straight. He's going to be on the gas as soon as possible. You see him dropping, taking and turning off the traction controls to get the best possible exit. And well, I mean, because you've probably got a cup of tea or chance to make a cup of tea on the straight, haven't you? You've got so much time to work with. Yeah,
it's a long old straight down there, isn't it? Down the Mistral straight. And then it is into, I'm going to have a crack at these corner names. So it's Corbett de Seine, which is the right-hander at the end of the straight here. Now, this is where the slipstream is going to be, of course, very, very important. And I'm going to say this now, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I am a big fan of that McLaren. I love that car. And, oh, well, that's too deep. That is a point I was actually going to make, is that if you throw it too hard into the Coupe de Seine, you're going to sail off into that almost epilepsy-inducing strips on the exit there. So you're going to lose some time, and of course lose qualifying laps if you do that. Now coming through Forage de Bendor, and then the Garlaban, if I've pronounced this correctly, now to the last two. This Forage de la Tour, and then Dupont, which is the final turn here. Very, very crucial to get the exit of this corner right. It's crucial to get any corner right, of course, but you've got the next straight along here where you're going to see some action, going to see a little bit of slipstreaming going on. The line is quite some way down. It is there, so that's where we'll start seeing times clocking up. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that McLaren. Of course, so is Sancho. Something else that I'm really, really glad to see is the wide range of marques we've got. This isn't, it's not Ferrari heavy, it's not Audi heavy, it's not Porsche heavy. Porsche has got a little bit less representation, granted, but you've got McLaren, Ferrari, Porsche, Audi, Aston, Mercedes. Only one Merc I can spot them. There's a Bentley also in the just inside the top 23 names there with Nuclings as well. Fantastic to see. I love when we get a great big spread of the marques being represented.
Absolutely, and it does give you that kind of flexibility and that kind of mixture across the course of a season. You can see Jonathan Seville sitting top of the timing board in the 1:53.6. He's just pipped Milos Stamenkovic in the sister Zancho McLaren at the moment. So it's Ferrari, McLaren, and a couple of Ferraris underneath there. You see Dean Riley going very wide through scene. As long as they don't touch those little marker boards on the outside, that should keep the lap valid. It's a nice hot track at the moment as well, so it's going to be very key to keep those temperatures as in kind of range as possible. But look at those times, Chris. Top 12 we're just under 10 minutes into the qualifying session, set within a second, and that's what you want to see, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Look at that. Less than 2 seconds for 23 cars. Something else we really love to see in GT3 racing. It's so common to have times so close. It's not a short lap either. Let's be honest. We're nearly 2 minutes for the lap. I mean, if it was a 1 minute 10, 1 minute 15 lap, say you got Austria as a prime example, you expect those times to be close. But this is, I say 1:53.6 is our pole time by Johnny Seville at the moment as we look at Yannick Muller for Simsport Racing and the 143 Audi. I say I love the McLaren, but God, that thing done off sing. The noise of those Audis is fantastic. I'm going to keep saying that, and I'm not ashamed of it, because these GT3 cars are fantastic. Let's be honest. But yeah, that's what I love. This field is got so much talent in it. Now you can argue that 2 seconds is a long time in racing terms. Granted, over a single lap, it's a bit of a distance. But in GT cars, that gap now top to bottom from the 23 is now 1.7 seconds, so it's getting even tighter. In GT3 cars, it's not as bad as you might think. And pace over an individual lap, whilst important for qualifying, stating the obvious, grant you, it really isn't the be-all and end-all. So many times, and I'm sure we've all seen it either from the commentary box or from the spectator stand, you can be an absolute god when it comes to one lap pace. But over the course of a race, if you can't maintain that pace, if you're flying off the road every 5 seconds, you're no good to anyone. Absolutely, Chris. There's one man who's just dropped himself into the top 10 is the man on camera at the moment, Abdoulaye Diop, of course, former professional GT4 racer in real life, so he's going to be very much experienced in this sort of things. He has got a good pace to him, but can get caught up. You can see Jonathan Seville getting a bit of a tow from his sister McLaren Pole Simsport car. Of course, Pole Simsport, running the two different teams, 2 of them in the Ferrari, 2 of them in the McLaren, but can see some tactics being deployed early doors. Still 11, just over 11 minutes to it towards the end of qualifying. But one man we've not yet seen on the timing chart, Chris, is Robbie Stapleford. He's not put a time in yet. He is out on track, I believe. He's just at a 1:55.0, but that didn't look like it was valid. He's a man who is going to be... Well, I'm really interested to see where he shakes out in this, because as we've said, this is a very, very close field. It was exactly the same as Silverstone. Granted, the wet weather in the qualifying session did spread them apart a little bit, but when it came to the race, there was battles all over the field, and I think what we're seeing here in the qualifying session is really going to pay dividends to that. But I'm very intrigued to see where that young man's going to come out in his first sighter lap in a couple of minutes' time. Yeah, completely. And you can now get an idea of, now we've scrolled a little bit further down the tower, just how many people are involved. Look at the track map alone. There's barely an available bit of track as we look. And briefly looked at Slavo Pavlovich. Again, apologies for getting the names wrong. I will get used to them. Robbie Stapleford, he's down in 36 because he hasn't set a time yet in the number 1 McLaren. He's got that number 1 for a reason. Don't expect him to stay down there. That's a great shot. Now, who wouldn't want to pay to be in that passenger seat? I would. I would be quite happy being chucked around for a lap or two. For a whole race, yeah, maybe not. But I mean, what a great experience that would be, wouldn't it? Just to be on board. Were we chucking these around the real Paul Ricard? What an experience that would be. Absolutely. You can see he's got a perfectly good tow off of the back of one of the Simsport Racing Apex cars. I think that is the number 69 of Regan Mitchell. Just looking at the timing chart. If you do want to keep an eye on the timings, rather as well as keeping an eye on the official stream, as you can see this evening, then if you head over to pitwall.live, then you can see all of the timings, so that you can keep a keen eye on sector times and everything like that, as well as we can see Robbie Stapleford comes through DuPont for the final time on his flying lap. He's got that perfect tow down the Mistral straight and down the main straight, and as a result goes for pole, but only, Chris, by 0.2 of a second. Normally I'd expect him to be a little bit further ahead than that, but it looks like, unless he's going to come out and blitz the field and get another half a second on now, it looks like it's going to be rather tight and close at the top of the timing charts, which is exactly what we want this early in the championship. rather close. My goodness me. And that was with a toe as well, I'll add. But you know full well that Mr. Stapleford, he's got something up his sleeve. You know he'll keep the very best to the very last. He's done it many, many times before, and there he is in that really resplendent Zancho Simsport livery there. Oh no, he was actually up on that lap, but he was too close to the car in front, so he had to bin it. That's a great shame. Did I not just say that he had a bit more in hand? But yeah, he's got time. We've got just over 8 minutes now for another lap to come out as we come back to try this one. Abdoulaye Diop. Coming to the end of his lap in the 25 Audi. And that's just lucky number 7 for him, 777. I always approve of symmetry like that. And we jump to one of the Pulse PR guys, Jonathan Seville. He's dragging along one of his fellow Pulse Ferraris. Now, these cars, I love the look of the Ferrari. I don't like that livery. I'm sorry, Pulse, I don't. That pink doesn't work for me. But and here we go. So Jonathan's doing a brilliant job just dragging his fellow teammate along. He's going to slot in behind, and I'm not sure which one of the Pulse. Ooh, that looked close. Not sure which one of the Pulse Ferraris he's dragged along there, but whoever it is has given them. Well, you can visibly see the difference there. Now, bearing in mind that car was, 3 car lengths behind Jonathan Seville, would you say, on the back string? And look at the advantage he's getting. Now, yes, you can argue that Jonathan Seville's probably backed off a little bit here. He probably hasn't. He's probably actually just staying in the slipstream of his fellow Pulse teammate. But that's how much of an advantage you can gain. If you get that slipstream right along the Mistral Straight, because it's so long, you can easily gain a huge amount of time.
Absolutely. Quoted to about 1.2 miles of the 3.5 mile tour of this circuit, which tells you all you need to know. He crosses the line. He doesn't improve, as you might have spotted, Chris. I think he did back out of that one. He's got another one of the Pulse Simsport teams. I think it's Marcus Hagel on the infield there, who's currently sitting P17. Rasmus Christensen, however, who's the man who's giving Jonathan Seville a tow, has actually gone up into 4th. He was 17th before, so he's gained a second on that lap alone, which is fantastic showing from the number 17 car. Milos Stamenkovic still sitting in P5. He's dropped back a little bit. Dean Riley is currently the closest challenger to Robbie Stapleford, who's in the pits as it stands. 6 minutes left of qualifying. It's the weather is perfect for this evening in this 20-minute qualifying session. Chris Pinchbeck going down the Mistral Straight now. He's sitting a little bit lower than he would want to. He's sitting in P18, 1.2 seconds off though, which just tells you the amount of quality that we've got in the field this evening. He's without his firing partner Rich Smith, who's unable to attend this evening, which is a bit of a shame. However, he is someone to keep an eye out for. Pinchy has definitely got the pace. Let's say a 5th and 6th result for the Golf Simsport team last time out. No toe on that occasion, Chris, though, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens to his time on this toured circuit.
Yeah, he's already won as far as I'm concerned. He's in the Golf livery. I'm sorry. It
is a beautiful car, isn't it?
Isn't it just? On an Aston Martin. Patriotic, yes. Guilty as charged. I'm not going to apologise for that either. If that was on the McLaren, I would declare the championship over here and now. But no. No, it's a gorgeous car. And Mr. Pinchbeck, or Pinky Pinchbeck as he was called by his own mother, I will add, in the VTCC. I got the great pleasure of commentating on him last week on this very channel. So I know how quick he is. And you can expect him to climb up the field. Monty Wilson then in Bloodline Racing number 776 Ferrari, and that's another fine looking car. Oh, now that got a little bit squiggly coming down into Verrières, the first chicane. Now the Ferrari really did not want to behave itself, but he still only finds himself just 1.1 seconds off that top spot. If he found a 1/10 of a second alone, he'd get 2 positions straight away, and that's just, to put it in perspective, a 1/10 of a second is how fast the average person blinks. That's how quick a 1/10 of a second is. So, yet again, proving the point that the field is just unbelievably close.
Absolutely, it definitely puts it into perspective. Monty Wilson making his debut of SSR this evening, so nice to see another new name to the field. And of course, it's nice to see such a heavily laden grid. I'm sure the guys will be screaming in their headsets at the moment, knowing that there's so many on track while they're trying to put their qualifying lap in. However, it's brilliant to see for the time being. And you can now see Simsport Racing's very own, affectionately known Ferrari works driver, Ranjiv Kalsi, in the Iron Lynx livery, the one who, of course, I think was the one that won the Spa 24 Hours a few months back. So he's picked an appropriate one from what we can see. He's a couple of seconds off at the moment. He's got a little bit of time to gain to get ahead of Martin Neuterlings and Quick Stolitis ahead of him, but Ranj's definitely got the pace. I've been listening to him. He's been practicing over the last couple of days. He's been very, very good with his setups. His Ranj knows what he needs to do to get the car doing what he needs to. So I would expect him to shoot up the leaderboard over the last few minutes. And realistically, Chris, we're looking at those who are coming out on track now. If they are, they've probably only got one, maybe even two chances if they're lucky to get a lap in. So it's really important as Ollie Henley and one of the Simsport Racing Simsport Predator Apex cars gets very, very close there. I can't quite catch which one it is. It's one of Mitchell or Vidago. Either way, a little bit too close and not what you want when you're putting a fast lap in.
That would have woken them both up. And yeah, Ollie Henley won't be happy about that because it really compromised his line. But then, as I can't identify who that is ahead. I think it's one of the other, it's one of the Pulse Apex cars. If they're on a hot lap, they're not obliged to get out of the way. The guy behind you may well be on a hot lap. That is the nature of qualifying, and that is one of the downsides of having a very heavily packed grid, is you are going to have to manage when you get that space. But exactly as you say, David, we only have 2.5 minutes to go. If you're about to start your hot lap now, you're all well and good for 2 runs. But if you have a problem like that, then, kiss it goodbye. Oh, and out come... Oh, lovely synchronized driving there as the other Pulse HD cars come out, and they're going to slot around. Are they going to slot around the Philip? Oh no, they've left him alone. Oh dear, that's Dean Riley pulling off. Where's he done that?
Not sure where he stopped there. It looked like it was in. It looked like it was in the first sector, but I'm not entirely sure where it was.
It looked like it was hotel. Looking by the map, it looked like it was like you say, in the midst of sector 1. So that's got wrong. That's bright.
Certainly not a car you're going to miss, is it? I'm just looking as well, Chris, and looking at the top of the time chart. Both Robbie Stapleford and Dean Riley are not out on track, so no more laps for those guys. Adam Asalovic puts it into 6th on the grid. In fact, he didn't actually improve that time. He lost about half a tenth on that lap, but he's still 5 tenths off again. I've been chatting with him, and he was looking very good so far. Sam Pearce, a newbie to the team, she's driving for Redline Zap Racing this evening in the Ferrari. I do remember her saying she hasn't been able to get the Ferrari under her spell so far, but she's got plenty of chance to practice, and I know her other half is a big fan of sim racing as well. He was very kind enough to donate her his spare rig, which is always nice. I wish I had someone who would do that for me. Maybe I could get up the barrier there as well. And I'm hoping she'll improve now as well. She puts in the time. It's slightly, so it's a second off, but she has got enough time, Chris, to put another lap in. So hopefully we can see some improvement from her down there as well.
Oh, to have a spare let alone
Absolutely.
But I mean, yeah, that's brilliant to see. Hopefully, if they come together on track, hopefully that's not going to cause too many problems for them domestically. It's great to see when you've got that kind of those kind of that kind of synergy going on. You and your partner, or you and somebody you know, it does make a difference.
Absolutely, and it gives you a chance to share setup tips as well. As Milos Domenkovic comes across the line, he goes 2 tenths quicker. He puts himself into 4th on the grid, 2.5 tenths back off current pole sitter Robbie Stapleford. Jonathan Seville and Rasmus Christensen are the only 2 really now, apart from Kieran Vidago maybe, who can actually improve and try and put some form of challenge to Robbie Stapleford on pole. Otherwise, it's going to be as you were from last week on the top 2, Stapleford on pole and Riley alongside him. Interesting to see as time hits 0. Everyone now, Chris, on their final lap.
Yep, checker flag is out. If you're not on track, you will do no more. So Robbie Stapleford remaining on that blistering 153.4. I mean, these guys are phenomenal, but we always encourage anybody of any skill level, if you fancy a go, that's the beauty of sim racing. Give it a try. You don't necessarily have to have the latest and greatest equipment. You can have a fairly cheap steering wheel. I mean, a lot of the people start on a control pad, hand up. That was me as well. That's possibly a reason why I'm still in the commentary box, but that's another matter. I'm a very big advocate for people giving it a go. And wow, that's a gorgeous bright orange Ferrari behind the one that we're watching, Monty Wilson. Oh, but he's gone on to... Is he getting out of the way? Or yeah,
it looks like he's aborting the lap. Interesting way of doing it. I probably would have got out of the way a little bit sooner myself, but that's fine. I think that's Sebastian de Tollenaire in the Schumi Get Well Soon livery car. In fact, it's not. It's one of his teammates, I believe, who is in that beautiful liveried Ferrari. From what I can see, Milos Stamenkovic has come back into the pits. No one looks to be improving, including Jonathan Seville. I don't think he's managed to improve. No, he's back in the pits. Rasmus Christensen comes through DuPont for the final time. He's going to be the final person to make any sort of chance against trying to topple that pole sitter of Robbie Stapleford. It's a lot closer than it was last week. He doesn't improve. As a result, sits in 5th place on the grid. But Chris, that qualifying was super, super close. And like you said, you mentioned having that pace over one lap is going to be key as well. But if these guys can keep a similar pace as they did in qualifying over the 90-minute race we've got coming up, it's going to be an absolute corker, isn't it?
Yes, please. We will have some of that. And because the grid is so long, you can almost line the cars up nose to tail and walk around the entire circuit. It's a big grid, but yeah, I'm so. I might have mentioned it once or twice. I'm looking forward to this. But again, coming back to what I was saying earlier, this is the joy that a lot of people love, myself included, about GT racing. You tend to get these very big grids, even smaller grids. The racing can be so intense because, generally speaking, certainly in GT3 terms, there's not massive divides between different cars. It's not like multi-class racing where the LMP1s are going to be lapping the GT3s within 5 laps. You're not facing that kind of deficit. So you've got broadly similar to the machine. Yes, these guys, of course, can do their own setups. There's amount of practice and experience that goes on, obviously. But the actual core machinery is broadly the same. Advantages, disadvantages, yes, of course there are. And it's how your driving style suits the different cars available. They all have their own little characteristics. The Ferrari will differ to the Audi, will differ to the Aston, will differ to the Bentley in some way, shape or form. But like I say, the sort of general baseline is broadly the same. So really the biggest thing that makes the difference is the squishy organic bit behind the wheel.
Absolutely. It's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. Like I say, 6 rounds in this championship, and as you very aptly put, to be fair, Chris, different races for different cars for different people, I think is fair to say. Clearly, like we say, we saw Robbie Stapleford to an extent run away with it in Silverstone a couple of weeks ago, and I, for one, I was a little bit worried at that point, thinking that's going to be dead and buried and he's going to take the championship once more. However, this qualifying session has really put the cat amongst the pigeons and tells me that he's not going to have it all his own way. Now, he did put in 1 lap as far as I can tell. It might have been 1 more that invalidated to begin with, but he has got that 1 lap pace as we always knew he did. However, 90-minute race, it's an open pit window, so there's no necessity to pit at any particular point. If you have a dodgy first lap, then you can pit straight away. If you want to run it deep into the end of the race and try and go for a quick splash dash at the end, change tyres, that's not a problem. So it really does open up and it makes those calls really, really interesting. And like I say, 6 rounds in this championship. This is, of course, round number 2, season number 7, as we've mentioned before, of this GT3 championship with Simsport Racing. Of course, Robbie Stapleford, as we said before, is currently the reigning champion and is looking to continue that reign for another season at least. We head to Misano in a fortnight's time. We then head on to a double header in the UK at Snetterton and Donington Park, respectively, and then we finish off at the iconic Suzuka circuit in the middle of November. And that Suzuka is one of those, isn't it, Chris? It is the kind of place you need to have a season finale at, isn't it?
It's rude not to, isn't it? It's just iconic in being the place where championships or feuds or whatever are resolved, one way, good or bad. It's just such a great circuit, and it's very different to a number of circuits that the season has already seen. So, but what a great lineup. Misano, maybe slightly lesser known to a number of people, but GT3 has been there a lot of times. So these cars really do well. GT3 can work pretty much anywhere. You can take them to somewhere like, to Le Mans, obviously, and then you take them to a tiny little track like Cadwell Park, and they will just sing. I mean, they may not like the mountain too much at Cadwell, but they can go anywhere. They really can ford every stream and climb any mountain. They're just wonderful machinery. So absolutely. Yeah, it's just great to see, and what a brilliant circuit lineup we've got for this season. Absolutely amazing.
We will turn our focus now, though, to the grid for the start of this race. 3 minutes to go until Robbie Stapleford leads us around. He's got Dean Riley alongside him in the number 2 Simsport Racing McLaren. It's an all-Ferrari second row. It's not an all-Ferrari second row because that changed when Stomenkovic went quicker. It's Jonathan Seville, Nick and Milos Stomenkovic on row 2, and then it's an all-Ferrari third row and fourth row with Rasmus Christensen and Adam Misalovic on 5th and 6th, and Kieran Vidago and Regan Mitchell making it a Simsport Predator Apex at 4th row. Mantis Povilaitis looking to follow up his second place at Silverstone for starting 9th on the grid, so really being able to take that Porsche to places it shouldn't really go. It's not really the best in a straight line, so he's clearly got a very good setup for the twisties either side of the straight. And Abdoulaye Diop, we've mentioned him a few times, rounds out the top 10. Wagner Marquez and Ollie Henley sit 11th and 12th, with Yannick Muller and Seb McLeod sitting in 13th and 14th. Monty Wilson has Dave Hedges for company on the row behind them, with Chris Pinchbeck and Marcus Hagel just behind them as well. It's then Simon Wilkes and Kaz Dambrowskis who round out the top 20. Tom Smith and then Sebastian Tolinera in the 2 Ferraris in 21st and 22nd. I'm starting to go through pit wall live now to get these names up because there's so many of them on this grid this evening. And then we've got Thomas Savokas and Rob Jackson in 22nd and 23rd. 23rd and 24th, Mantis Armalis and Zlatko Pavlovic in 25th and 26th. Francisco Lem, Gedemanis, Crick Stolitis, Mark Neutelings, Ranch Kelsey rounding out the 30. And then we've got Arnis Morcus, Steam Passport in the Soul Jaguar, which is actually, you'll like this, Chris. We haven't seen it yet, but it's the Castrol Supra liveried Jaguar, which always looks good. We'll come past
gorgeous
in just a second. Ash Coupland, Martin Dergala, Steve Parker, and Sam Pearce round out this 36 strong grid, which is absolutely ridiculous. Which Steve Proudly, our broadcast director, is doing his fantastic job of running the Simsport Solutions Segway down it at the moment. And there you can see it, Chris, just on the left of your screen. That is that Denso Castrol Supra livery on that Jag, which looks absolutely fantastic.
That has been recreated brilliantly. It's a bit odd that it's not on a Toyota, but I won't blame it for that. I also spotted the Martini livery earlier on. That was absolutely fantastic. Oh, there's that Keep Fighting Michael livery you mentioned earlier. Very much in support of that. We have had our first victim. Sadly, Miles Dixon has lagged out and is unable to rejoin. So sadly, the first victim has fallen by the wayside. It's a great shame. Miles is someone I've commentated on quite a few times in the past. So it's a shame we don't get to see him on this grid. But I have no doubt he'll come back stronger for the next round, as we are 15 seconds away for 90 minutes here at Paul Ricard.
Absolutely. Robbie Stapleford will lead us off for the formation lap, and it's going to feel very strange for the drivers going down the Mistral Straight at something around about 60 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour for those of you who are running in different metrics if you prefer. Robbie Stapleford, he'll lead us away as he just starts away from the grid. 6:15 server time, so nice and early in the morning. The sun will rise shortly. It's a slightly cooler track than we had in qualifying, so it'll be interesting to see how the guys have got on with that. Of course, they'll be adjusting the tyre pressures accordingly to make sure they're in the perfect range and making sure their pit strategies are set up for when they inevitably come into the pits. If you were driving in this one, Chris, what would your decision be in terms of strategy? If there was no incidents for you at the start, would you split the race 50-50, or would you try and do something a little bit different out there this evening?
Would rather dictate on how the start went. If I was stuck in a pack that I was pretty certain I could try and get through, I might opt for an earlier pit stop, but I would stick with all incidents aside. I would stick with a 50-50 split. It just gives you as the driver that's just a little bit of a breather. I mean, 90 minutes isn't long in endurance terms, but if you're used to more kind of sprint race formation, setups, then you're going to need just that little time just to let your brain just reset a little bit and then get straight back on the action. So I would go with a 50-50 split, but then I'm not an endurance racer. I would have been in the wall way before that.
That's very honest of you, Chris, but I'm sure you're doing yourself a disservice. Don't you worry.
Oh, you kind man. No, believe me, I know where my talents lie, and it's not behind the wheel. This is why the commentary box seat is much more comfortable in races like this. I actually do really admire drivers that can go for these long stints. So you're talking, like a 24-hour race, you've got people doing 3, 4, 5-hour stints. I absolutely applaud them because I don't know how you do it. Well, I do know how you do it. You practice it. These people are very, very physically fit that do endurance type races. Even 1.5 hour races are pretty taxing. So I really do salute these guys that can just do lap on lap on lap on lap on lap for absolutely ages. Really consistency, really quick. These guys can set pace in the wet that I would only ever dream of in the dry. So again, that's why I go for the commentary box, because I can't keep up with these guys. I have done a little bit of league racing myself, but let's not talk about that.
It's a different class, especially at the top end of this grid. I mean, we saw how close they were. I think it was between P1 and P14 in the end, was split by just a second, and the whole grid itself was only split by just over 3, maybe even 4 seconds. So even then, a 36 strong grid split by 4 seconds really shows you the quality. And one thing you will always get from the SSR GT3 Championship and all of the championships that Simsport Racing hold, in fairness to the community, is you will get everybody fighting no matter what position they are in the championship or in the race at that time as well. We saw battles for 15th and 16th. We even saw battles for the back end of the top 20 in the race at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago. So it's really testament to these guys. They always put 100% in. And in turn, you and I, Chris, we get fantastic racing as a result, which is what we want to see. And it's what everyone who's watching at home wants to see as well. And I'm sure tonight will be no different.
I fully condone that sentence, yep. As we now form the 2x2 formation, so the drivers are, as you can see, they've slowed down, or Robbie Stapleford's nearly stopped. But we're going to be reforming the 2x2 line, as the GT3 drivers will now be forming the rolling grid. We're going to be doing a rolling start, as is fairly the norm. People are trying to decide what pace to go at. As Robbie Stapleford will then, once we get back onto the start-finish line, drop the hammer when the flag drops or when the lights go out. You'll see the timer hasn't moved yet and won't do so until the race officially begins, and then Robbie Stapleford will be first to enjoy the track, and we'll get underway for 1.5 hours here at Paul Ricard.
Absolutely, it's cars 1 and 2 in first and second on the grid. They were first and second in the championship last season as well. Dean Riley didn't have the best of starts at Silverstone, but he'll be looking to atone for his errors as we go green here at Paul Ricard. It's a good start from Riley, gets alongside Robbie Stapleford. Jonathan Seville sits in behind. Milos Domenkovic under fire from Rasmus Christensen as they go into the chicane for the first time. Robbie Stapleford just sits in front. As you can see there, Dean Riley just covers off the advances of Jonathan Seville. Milos Domenkovic still under fire from Rasmus Christensen. Adam Misanovic has got Kieran Vidago for company, and Mantis Povolitis has made the move on Regan Mitchell, but it's as you were for the top 3. Robbie Stapleford leads, Dean Riley leads, Jonathan Seville from Milos Domenkovic and Rasmus Christensen, your top 5. The only change so far, as we'll see the timing tower shake out in a minute, is Mantis Povolitis, who has made his way up into 8th position. We can see a drive-through penalty for Steve Parker. Now we can only assume that's to do with his position or his speed at the start. That's a big shame for him, as we can now start to see everything start to come into play. As we can see, actually, there's been a little bit of a change. Abdoulaye Diop, Chris, has made a couple of positions, and Mantis Povolitis has gone backwards down the field off the start there.
Yeah, most of the field have made it through the first few corners okay. Looks like Marcus Hagel, starting in 18th, has plummeted to the back. You can actually just about see his car number on the map there, 117. That McLaren is now dead last, but not too far off the back of the field. Hopefully he doesn't have too much damage to deal with early on. Oh, we're seeing... is that one of the Porsches that's tried to make a move? He's going to lose out there. You can see at the bottom of the shot, he's lost a position. Oh no! Who was that flew off the road?
I think that was Milos Domenkovic there, Chris. He's just gone off. I didn't quite catch what happened. Hopefully we can see a replay and get a bit more details. You see them all steaming into De Beausset for the first time. It's a Simsport Racing Apex, one side by side going into Bendor. Got Mantis Povolitis close behind. I think that's McLeod in just behind Povolitis as well, and then you've got Ollie Henley in the McLaren just behind them. But the gap at the front is starting to form. That's the car number 512 who's dropped back. I'll confirm who that is in just a second. Try and find out exactly who that was who got caught up in there. But yeah, a couple of incidents off the start. We've got some flashing from Abdoulaye Diop on the back of Adam Misanovic early doors, which is some underhand tactics to say the least. And at the end of lap 1, Chris, Robbie Stapleford has just under a second to Dean Riley behind.
The 512 Porsche is Pavlovich, is who we saw skimming off the road, and you can actually see his dot is quite some way off the back. Now looking at Jonathan Seville up to 3rd position in the Pulse JR Simsport number 97 Ferrari on the back of Dean Riley, who, like I say, did really match, or pretty much perfectly match Robbie Stapleford's start. So both the McLaren's cars 1 and 2 in those respective positions had an absolutely storming start, but at the moment it is advantage Stapleford as Dean Riley is fending off the advances of Jonathan Riley. Now back onto the Mistral straight. Now, yes, it is an endurance race. They're not going to fight too hard or they shouldn't fight too hard. But there you go, you're seeing defensive manoeuvres already when Jonathan Seville is going to try and pressure Dean Riley. Now, Dean's not going to just open the door and let Jonathan dance through, but he probably won't fight too hard so early in the race if the move really is on. Now, if we were within the last half an hour, then someone's killed a bollard there. You saw the chocolate shot. Towards the end of the race, yes, you'll see much more robust defences and moves going on. That's someone very, very wide. Was that like Jaguar that you were pointing out to me?
No, I think that was Vladimir Marquez in the Aston Martin who went really wide there. Like you say, he's going to be picking up a track cut warning for his troubles. Of course, those of you who are familiar with the way that Sept, of course, competency only handles those 3 track cut limits, and you will land yourself with a drive-through penalty that you must serve within 3 laps. So we'll keep an eye. If you do see a red DT pop up like we saw on Steve Parker's name on the first lap, that will mean they need to go through and serve that penalty at some point. Those of you who are new to this as well, you'll notice a little orange number 1 next to everyone's name. That is suggesting that they are yet to make their mandatory pit stop. Once that's been done, it will turn green and they can then carry on their merry way and finish off the race without needing to make any more trips through the pit lane. At least that's what they hope. And as I can see, I notice this every single time I commentate on races for Ricard, Chris. All of the cones that are on the side as you go into the first corner, all gone. Didn't take very long.
Yeah. No. Now you'll notice that the pit lane entry is actually on that start finish line. It doesn't use the kind of the Formula 1 entrant which come off of Le Tour. The version of the track we're using utilises that pit lane, the old, you could say, pit lane entrance that is on the start finish line. So it's a little bit shorter, essentially, but it's just the drivers have got to be aware of people pulling in as we continue to look at Jonathan Seville. Lovely roadside shot here. I wouldn't want to drive in this position. I have actually tried it. It's you don't see an awful lot. And look how defensive Dean Riley is. But there you go. You've just seen firsthand how powerful the slipstream is. Now, Jonathan Seville would have probably tried to time the move to now and sweeps through.
Very nice. Very
nicely done into Coupe de Seine. 3 wide now coming into the final turn. Sort it out, gentlemen. We don't want anybody being a tangled mess on the outside. Like you said, you can see the white board with the red stripe through it. As long as nobody exceeds or hits those, they won't get a track limit penalty unless they absolutely fly miles off the road, like we've already seen. As we now look at Wagner Marquez in the Aston. That's the car that was going very wide, like so. Where are you going, sir? That Audi going for a bit of an exploratory route through Via de Bendor. That didn't go too well. That would be that'll be Mr. Pinchbeck, was it? No,
Yannick Muller. Trying to apply for some planning permission to extend the remits of the track there a little bit. Chris Pinchbeck was quite fortunate to come out of that. I was just expecting. It looked to me like Yannick Muller was going to make the move around the outside of Marquez, but I think clearly what had happened was he might have outbraked himself and just went a little bit wide instead, which has just given him. He's made him drop a couple of positions there, as we can see. Now, Jonathan Seville's challenge now is to try and close up that gap to Robbie Stapleford ahead. On the last lap, he was a 10th slower with that slipstream. And that he obviously went round the outside of Dean Riley into Curva del Seine as well. What's going to be interesting as well, isn't it, Chris, is the fact that Dean Riley's not exactly dropped off the back of Jonathan Seville. You can see we go on board with the number 2 Simsport McLaren at the moment. I'm really keen to see how the slipstream is the other way around, because that McLaren's not exactly... It's not a slouch in a straight line. None of these cars are part of the Porsche, really. But it's going to be really interesting to see, as you can see, Jonathan Seville weaving like a good and proper underhand tactics, which you love to see, how this slipstream plays out. It's not going to be enough, it doesn't look like, for him to get alongside into Seine on this occasion. He can stay close enough, though, in order to make the move back in the next couple of laps.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Also, we don't know how hard these drivers are pushing at this stage. Now, some people are going to want to try and save the tyres, maybe also utilise that slipstream to save fuel, to make their pit stop a little bit shorter. So these drivers are going to be thinking about that. They may well have rehearsed that to see how well they can pull that off. We will see. So whilst we see Dean Riley is kind of maintaining that half a second gap, it's not necessarily he can't close that down. He may just opt not to. As we now switch to Simon Wilkes in the Simsport Racing squad, that rather bright yellow, red and yellow, I'll try that again, yellow, red and blue livery, as he's being hounded by... Who is he being hounded by? That is Francesco Leem right behind. Is that how you say it? in the Aston?
I go with Leme. I don't know.
Leme,
how fancy you be? How fancy you feeling?
That was an interesting attempt on the outside of the final turn of Dupont. It's not generally going to work unless you're alongside much earlier than that. But it does look like Francesca's not willing to stay there behind the Ferrari. Jumps out of the Aston. So that's where the number 3 car is. Is he going to try and do the inside manoeuvre into turn 1, into the Verrier? Yes, he does. Don't outbrake yourself. No, that should be pretty good. Nice move. Fairly straightforward. Francesca LeMay into 20th position. And this really does back up what you were saying earlier, that it really doesn't matter what position these guys are in, especially so early in the race. Everyone is going to be fighting for every position they're in. No one really gives up. And that's great to see as well. But some people might. You're invariably going to find that. But Dave Hedges, here we go. Prime example, number 88, the Simsport Racing Audi, is really hustling now. That's Marquez. He's behind, I believe, Wagner Marquez. He may well just opt to stay there. It's come back to what I was saying earlier. These guys are going to be saving a little bit of fuel for all the time they're in the slipstream force. So he may not be in a hurry to try and banzai down the inside of Scene, although just as I say that, he jumps out of the slipstream. But they may just opt to stay there. I think he thought about it, but they do save a little bit of fuel. Oh, wow, as you saw Muller there getting a little bit lively on the coming through Scene. Now, like I was saying earlier, they're going to shorten their pit stop if they do manage to save a little bit of fuel. Now, they can pit a bit later. Oh, great opportunistic move there, trying to do the inside move through the twisties. It's not impossible, but it's really difficult to do. But he's also trying to distract Marquez. It's probably more mind game that Dave Hedges is doing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see the way that you can take slightly different lines. It's not really something you can do in the first sector, but it definitely is in that final end to the lap, as you saw there. People taking different lines and giving themselves a chance. I think that's Milos Stomenkovic running through the pit lane at the moment. So he's a lap down already after his excursions on the first lap, getting caught up. Not sure whether there was contact between them. Abdullah Diop is a man who's been looking to make the move for the last couple of laps. He's been on the back of Adam Misalovic pretty much from lap number 1, so he's been behind him for 10 minutes thus far, but will continue this for the time being. We'll see if that Audi has got the top end to make a move down the Mistral straight. He's nice and close. He's going to try and get the best possible exit in that number 25 car. But Adam is a man, I've driven with him a few times, and he's very, very difficult to unruffle. He's very composed. And he did say to me, he's going to kill me for saying this live on stream. I was talking to him the other day, and he did say he likes to think he's very consistent and doesn't normally spin. Make of that what you will. And if he does that this evening, I will happily say to him, I'm so sorry. Was Abdullah Diop takes an interesting line down the Mistral straight and goes bumping up.
Yeah,
not sure what was going on there.
Maybe he was aiming for the cones.
Absolutely. It seems to me like Diop might have a setup which is a bit more focused on the twisty sections of this track rather than the top speed. He didn't really seem to gain too much as Tom Smith in the Bloodline Season 7 car just gets a little bit out of shape with Wagner Marquez very close. As he goes into Dubose, Wagner Marquez is going to get the inside line. It's going to switch to the outside line as they go into De Bendor. And that's going to give Dave Hedges the chance to sniff any moves that might happen. But it looks like Wagner Marquez could try and take the outside line. He's going to be inside line for the Gala-Bam, but he's going to be outside for Delator. It's one of those sections where you can, like we've said a couple of times, Chris, we can run side by side as Muller makes a move, as Hedges makes a move. Tom Smith was looking good for 13th there, and all of a sudden he's dropped down to 15th. And it's
no!
Yannick Muller makes a move a little bit too late, too late there. Caught Chris Pinchback and caught Tom Smith, who was unfortunately a passenger in the Ferrari, and dropped himself down to 22nd position. It's a bit frustrating when that sort of thing happens because it is completely beyond your control.
It is very frustrating, but this is where a test of the mental strength comes in. So this is something I talk about fairly regularly, and those that are maybe new to sim racing won't necessarily kind of think that the mental game is as important. It's probably just as important, or nearly as important, as the physical racing ability. Is the ability, when things go wrong, to just set yourself back into the rhythm and get back on pace again. Because it's very easy to think, oh, well, that's that, and you start to give up. Been there, done it too many times. So it's very easy to go down that line. So if you've got that mental discipline to say, oh, well, okay, fair enough, plenty of the race to go, let's get back on it, as we see slightly up. Is that Vidago and Diop swapping? No, it's Mitchell and Vidago. Yeah, so they're swapping round. Oh, that did look choreographed, but crikey, that was late. That could have gone a little bit wrong.
Yeah, it was interesting, but it's one of those, isn't it? You've got someone in the form, I think it's Ollie Henley just behind him, the 808 Pole Simsport McLaren. It's one of those, isn't it? You're in such a fast part of the track, you don't want to let off too much and give the man behind. As we see Simon Wilkes there, I think, going very, very wide and in turn backwards off the side of the corner, which is a little bit of an interesting move. Clearly went a bit too aggressive on the entry to the corner, and unfortunately got the car switched up and ended up in, as I think you very appropriately mentioned earlier, Chris, is the epilepsy-inducing exterior of the track that we've got here with Paul Ricard.
Yes, I don't pretend to be a fan of that, I'm afraid, but it's is there whether we like it or not. As we now look at Ollie Henley in the previously mentioned Pulse HD Simsport number 808 McLaren. Oh, he's going to go for an inside manoeuvre. He's left that a bit late. No, he's backed out of that one. There was a little bit late. Oh, he's forced the mistake on Kieran Vidago. Oh, has he? Oh, great move. Well, that's what Ollie Henley was trying to do. Either make the move or make the mistake. As the 911, that's how do we say this one? Povolitis. I wholeheartedly apologise. I will try and get these names right. Very opportunistic move in our lead Porsche as well. He's not the only Porsche out there, is he?
There is, yeah. We've got Pavlovich as well.
Pavlovich as well.
He's a fair bit. He's down in 31st at the moment, so he's not quite got the speed. The benefit, of course, for Povolitis is the fact that he's in a bit of a slipstream train at the moment. So his lack of top speed in the Porsche, which is underlined by the fact that his team is appropriately called, as you can see on the screen now,
no top speed
racing, which is very appropriate. He is in a good position because he's not losing too much time. And I'm a big fan of the Porsche and ACC. I think it's a very good car, apart from the lack of top speed. He'll be a lot quicker than some of these guys in the first and third sector. So if he can keep around someone, then I think he'll be in good shape to get some decent points as he is at the moment. As Dave Hedges looks to the inside of Wagner Marquez, it's the position you want to be in. As Marquez goes very wide, I didn't quite see if there was contact. It didn't look like it to me, but for one way or another, as Wagner Marquez goes drifting into De Bose, that's not the way you want to do it, and those tyres will not thank you for that, young man. As Dave Hedges makes the move, there's some interesting moves as Chris Pinchbeck here. He's dropped down to 21st at the moment. He's just gone past Simon Wilkes and Yannick Muller there, who of course was caught up in the move between Pinchbeck himself and it was someone else as well, and I've completely forgotten who it was. It was Tom Smith who was caught up in that. He's now stuck behind the sole Jaguar of the grid, which is that in the form of the Treble 4 car of staying past sponsors. It's not quite gone well, that move for Yannick Muller. Of course, we saw it going into the point, getting a little bit out of shape, a little too little too late, and as a result, kind of I wouldn't say ruined, but certainly left a mark on himself and some of the drivers' races, unfortunately.
Very true, but it's well over an hour of racing still to do. Robbie Stapleford now has a pretty comfortable lead up front in the number 1 McLaren. As we look at Adam Isilovic, is that correct? I'm going with that one. And the Simsport Racing bright Ferrari still fending off the advances of Abdoulaye. I will get that right. Abdoulaye Diop in the Triple One. I beg your pardon, in the 25 Audi, as they now go on to the Mistral Straight. Now again, you can see that the Ferrari is not in a hurry to get over to the left-hand side, so he's just biding his time and seeing if he has to defend. Is the Audi going to make a move here? He's close enough. Is he going to banzai at the very last second? I don't think he's going to. No, he's backing out of that. He's trying to force the mistake. Again, they will coming back to the mind games, especially as a seasoned GT4 racer. He'll know this technique all too well. He'll be very, very familiar with applying the pressure. Well, I think Diop was just not expecting the Ferrari to be a little slower than he was through those twisties. And the Audi is astonishing in the corners, so I'm not really surprised he was able to close in. Oh, there's our Jaguar, as you were mentioning earlier. But yeah, so that was Diop being caught slightly unawares there, but they both handled that pretty well. As we look at Yannick Muller recovering from that earlier spin that we saw, he's gotten past Stein Passport in the. It's almost like there's almost like a moustache on the front of that Jaguar. I've noticed. The kind of the shaven in the middle, kind of small moustache. I can't really describe it very well, but you get the idea. As we jump back to the battle for 5th position, I say battle. I mean, again, it depends on the strategy they're running. We don't know what strategy, of course, people are doing, but you know that Diop has been putting the pressure on and making his car very, very visible as well. So he'll force the mistake and he'll, of course, take the opportunity. But I still think that people in this kind of position, unless they're blindingly quicker than the one ahead, they're going to stay there just to save a bit of fuel and to make their pit stop strategy work a bit better, which, as David was pointing out, the number one in the tower, the yellow number one, indicates they have one mandatory pit stop to serve. That's not an I. They're not on intermediate tyres, or if they are, they're making it work far better than they should. So yeah, they have a pit stop to serve. It'll go green when they have served it, which won't be till much later, unless they've got to come in for any particular reason. The drive-through doesn't count, of course, because they're not stopping in the box, as we continue to watch this particular battle go on. So the pit stop is really when the race could completely change. Whilst Mr. Stapleford up front has got a pretty comfortable lead, it could all undo itself in the pit stop. We've all seen it. I've seen it happen on endurance racing, where someone with a seemingly comfortable lead, suddenly he's down several positions come pit stop time. Absolutely,
and it gives you that kind of unknown, doesn't it? Where we don't know who's going to end up certain places. We see Dean Riley, Jonathan Seville getting overtaken by Dean Riley into the final sector. It looks like that one might have been shaped up starting from the slipstream on the back straight. Rasmus Christensen is on the back of these guys as well. A bit of flashing from Jonathan Seville, so I wonder if there has been anything that might have been a little bit untoward from the Simsport Racing McLaren, the number 2 car, but he's got himself back up into P2, and he'll be trying and break away from these guys, and that 12-second gap is looking rather ominous for Robbie Stapleford, who I think, according to the track map, as you see one of the Pole Simsport drivers going a little bit wide coming out of the first chicane there. You can see Robbie Stapleford starting to come up to one of the back markers, I think, based by car number, if my memory serves me correctly, that'll be Sam Pearce. He is closing up towards, he's got the treble 2 car a little bit further up the road as well. As we can see, Rasmus Christensen has been overtaken by Jonathan Seville. Whether that was orchestrated or whether that was a proper move on track remains to be seen. I wonder if it's going to be a swap, and it just gives Rasmus the chance to put his kind of credentials to the test, Chris, and see if he can put the move on Dean Riley and see if he can make the gap work instead.
I think that's what the flashing was for, because bear in mind that, of course, the rear lights will also go on and off like that. I think that was actually an indication to Christensen behind more than it was a show of frustration to Dean Riley. That car's gone horribly wrong. Oh, you saw that bounce just as it hit a bump on the outside of scene there, just before he turned in, and he had no chance of being able to make that one work, as Monty Wilson side by side with Kieran Verdago. He's gone miles off the track, but he was kind of forced out there, really, by Kieran Verdago, as Monty Wilson, he tried to turn in, but he had too much pace. He couldn't turn in at the right time because Kieran Verdago was there. He's already trying to attack back. All that's going to do is send you off into the marble, so Monty Wilson may well be a little bit perturbed by being sent off into the dust at scene. But yeah, the move 17 and 97, Christensen and Seville, was almost certainly orchestrated. I think it was Johnny Seville we saw just disappear off the road earlier on to let his teammate go and have a crack at Dean Riley.
Absolutely. All of that meant, though, that there's actually a 1.6 second gap between Riley and Christensen now, so we'll see how that continues to evolve over the next couple of laps. Tom Smith trying to make his way back up the field. He's got Stain Passpomp for company behind him at the moment, but he's very close to the back of Simon Wilkes, who's then very close to the back of Yannick Muller as well. Chris Pinchbeck a few seconds up the road. But yeah, all of these guys, all three or four of these people, to be fair, Pinchbeck, Muller, Wilkes and Tom Smith, are all trying to undo some little incidents they've been a part of in the first 20 minutes of this race. We've then got Chris Stylitis in the Bentley behind Hagel, De Gala, Mark Neutelings, and De Tolinero, Marlison Parker rounding out the top 30. And you can see there's a few people. Sam Pearce, currently the last of many cars who hasn't served their mandatory pit stop. Milos Stamenkovic is one of those who has. So it'll be interesting to see, Chris, where Stamenkovic comes back in. Of course, we did see him get caught up in an incident at the start of the race. We saw him pointing almost in the wrong direction between Sean and Debose, as Robbie Stapleford seems to be going through there without any issue right now. He's really going to be one of those ones we're going to have to keep an eye out for, to see exactly where people come out in relation to him, seeing as he's presumably got some clear track ahead of him, as Monty Wilson tries to return the favour to Kieran Verdago. Got shoved out wide on the last lap, tries to do the same but doesn't manage it, and Vidago holds on to 10th place.
Yeah, good luck with that on Kieran Vidago. Kieran is a very, very gutsy racer. As I had the pleasure of commentating on him on the VTCC last week. After just the first round of that, he's in 6th position on that particular championship, so he knows how to chuck a car around pretty quickly. As we look at, I'm going to struggle with this one. Sebastian no, you're going to have to help me out here. Tolinaire. Okay, I got there eventually. Chasing one of the few Bentleys we have in the field. That's Neutelings. I recognise that one. Is it
a Hot Wheels? Is it Hot Wheels? Looks like a Hot Wheels kind of style thing. I mean, even
the Bentley, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
It looks like a shirt I would have worn at a primary school many years ago. One or the other.
It is a bit, yeah, with that flame livery on the front, yeah.
All I know is he's going to make that Bentley very, very wide indeed.
It's not hard.
Very good at it. No, it's not. It's a wide enough car. It's a wide enough car anyway. Mark Neuteling seems to do an unholy job of making it even wider than it already should be. In fairness to him.
Absolutely. But yeah, I very much appreciate the Get Well Schumi livery on those Ferraris. So I may not have been a Schumi fan back in the day, but I absolutely support that particular message. So bravo to you. As we jump back to Monty Wilson having another go at Kieran Vidago. Now they are really fighting quite hard. That's going to slow them down somewhat, but races are races at the end of the day. And look how hard Vidago is defending that inside line. Now, Monty Wilson, of course, is going to pick up the slipstream. He's going to nose ahead, but here we go again. It's an exact carbon copy of where we were last time around. But he's managed to make it work this time. So
that is a very, very nice
move. And run over some of the. I think those ones are indestructible ones, or they replace them. Yeah, Regan Mitchell has caught this particular line. So that's Selovich, Diop, and now Regan Mitchell having their fight. Now Regan Mitchell also with the VTCC. It was stormingly quick last time around. So I very much look forward to see how he handles the number 69 Ferrari. The Diop doing a great job representing the Audis. Tops obviously lead Audi in the field, as you can see in the tower. Not too many of them in the field, and feels the need to. Well, I was going to say feels the need to defend. Now that's more a distraction tactic against Salovich, but there's no. That was clear. There was no intent there. But also he's replaying as we see a replay of the start. Yeah, let's have a look further down the field, and we saw the front start okay. As we're looking at Mantis Amalis here. Well, he's in there somewhere. A lot of people shuffling around. Look at that. Lots of three-way going on. Oops, there we go. And that's where it went wrong.
Oh, Amalis just punted into the wall. Unfortunately, that was just courtesy of the concert effect, really, wasn't it? As you can see him, and I think that's Marcus Hagel getting caught up in there as well. And unfortunately for Simon Wilkes, he seems to breed trouble, and it's not his fault. He just seems to get caught up in things. He's caught up in an incident at Silverstone himself, and Aaron Martin Pilkington were a couple of those who were caught up in the incident at the start of the race at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago as well. Simon Wilkes just seems to attract it. He's almost like an incident magnet, for want of a better phrase. As you can see, Ollie Henley trying to go round the outside of Kieran Vidago. Now Kieran Vidago dropped off the back of Monty Wilson rather quickly, in fairness to him. He's got the McLaren of the Pulse Simsport car of Henley very, very close behind him. Gets a little bite of the cherry. He had to turn in a couple of times there to try and make the curve for Cenas, and Vidago goes deep as well. No one can keep it on the black stuff. I don't know where Vidago's gone. He's disappeared completely. I don't know where he's ended up. There he is. He's appeared back in P13, and it looked like he went off towards the channel at any point as well. And as I was about to say, before that all happened, Yannick Muller has been the first driver to seemingly, I'm going by what my assumption is, he's the first man to get a drive-through for track limits in particular. Of course, we saw Steve Parker get one. We can only assume that was for potentially something around the likes of speeding at the start line. I can actually see that Yannick Muller is stopped on track.
Yeah, I was just thinking
I think that's sector 1, isn't it? So he's dropped right the way back. He did cause a yellow flag.
Oh, yeah, that's sector 3. That's coming through.
Oh, apologies. Yes, it is. Yes. So I wonder if he's lost it going through scene again. Hopefully, we can see what's happened there. Assuming something's happened, he's not just stopped the car for one reason or another. But we turn our focus a little bit further down the grid to the two Schumi Get Well Soon cars, Martin Dergala and Sebastian Tonlera, with Mark Neutelings and Mantis Amalis sitting in tow as well. This is becoming a bit of a quartet, and I can see as interestingly, I mean, that was as orchestrated as you'll ever see, wasn't it, really? Sebastian Vettel there makes the teammates come together. That is going to be an awkward debrief if there ever was one. Goodness me.
Oh, no.
The one rule in racing is don't hit your teammate, as we've got another car off on the inside there. I didn't quite catch who that was.
Was that Hedges?
It wasn't Hedges. I'm just looking back through. It might have been. I don't know who it possibly could have been.
It's difficult to tell when there's so many of them.
Oh, it was Sam Pierce. It was Sam Pierce. There we go. Fortunately, Sam's got caught up. I'm not sure whether she was caught up in an incident there, because I know she'll be yielding to blue flags. I'm not sure if she got caught up and spun as a result or lost it on her own accord, which is unfortunate. But as you can see, Yannick Muller making it that pit stop for the drive-through as Ash Coupland comes in for a mandatory stop. Gediminas Quickstolitis all over the Backestein passport at the moment. And he's got, I think that's Marcus Hagel for company behind as well. I'm now beginning to see, Chris, that moustache you've talked about on the front of that Jaguar. I can totally see that. It looks like, you've got those two little bits just either side of the top lip, haven't you? I can totally see that now, and I'm never going to unsee it.
Nope,
so thanks for that.
Enjoy that. You're welcome. As Quickstolitis is in one of the Bentleys, he's gone a little bit deep. He's given the opportunity to Hagel to go around the outside at Ben Dorr. Can he get it done? Oh, nearly impact between the two, but the Bentleys had to yield. Very well done there by Marcus Hagel in the 117 McLaren. Oh, but the two Schumi Ferraris. Oh my goodness me! The thing was, they did the orchestrated pass perfectly well and kept the Hot Wheels flavoured Bentley behind them, and then spun themselves out. Oh no! They did the hard work and tripped over themselves on the easy bit.
Very disappointing indeed. The good thing, though, and one thing I do like to see, is the fact that they have actually, by the looks of it, Sebastian has actually dropped back. Martin has dropped back and let Sebastian back through, which is what we like to see. Because otherwise, it would be a pretty awkward debrief at the end of this race. Hagel, on the other hand, is trying to make two moves in the space of less than a lap. This is in the 1117 Pole Simsport car. He's all over the Backestein passport now. That Jaguar hasn't exactly proved to be quick in a straight line. I do recall from seeing conversations earlier that Stein wasn't exactly happy with the balance of the car. He was struggling with understeer, and as a result, I think did take off some wing to try and help with that. So he's going to be a little bit susceptible down the back straight. As you see, he goes very wide. He goes onto the Mistral straight, and Marcus Hagel's close enough already. He's going to be at least a car length ahead, you would assume, once they get into C, but he's not electing to peel out just yet. We'll see when he does manage to do it. He goes to the inside, there he goes alongside. Is he going to make the move stick? He's got enough to get stuck in there. As Kieran Vidago in P13 gets a drive-through penalty as well. They're all starting to feed in now, and as a result, disappears entirely. I don't know whether he's disconnected or whether he's had a hardware issue. I know he's had a couple of them in the past. But Hagel, on the camera there, does manage to make it through, gets himself up into P21 as Quickstolitis looks to go for the opportunistic move and shifts his way past Stein Passpont as well. But that looks like that move's going to be a little bit more difficult for the Bentley than it was for the McLaren, Chris.
Love the truth. So
you can see now, Milos Stamenkovic just heard it from broadcast director Steve Proudly. He's trying to he's trying to get past people and unlap himself at the same time. So he's got an interesting battle upon himself at the moment. Gets himself up into, I believe that'd be P28 as he just gets past Mantis Armalis, who's just coming out of the pit lane, who unfortunately has had to stop on the pit lane exit, Chris, because everyone else was coming past him, which is not what you want.
No, but I mean, at least he did the sensible thing and actually stayed there rather than just try to feed into this lot, because there's no way that you'll be able to feed out at this kind of race pace. As we see Stamenkovic, try that again, Stamenkovic, there we go, get there eventually. Here we go. Now this has been brewing for a while, hasn't it? So Selevic side by side with the Pole Simsport Ferrari. That's Seville, who seems to be losing places all over the place. Oh dear, that's three places in one corner. Now that's probably not damage or anything. That's just a simple mistake that's caused that. He was probably bullied off the road at scene, and then everybody else followed through. That was amazing. But Regan Mitchell in there as well wanted to get involved in this fight, but Diop still hasn't found a way past.
It's one of those, isn't it? If we did an end of season SSR GT3 awards do, the award for the worst 2 corners in the championship would probably go to Jonathan Seville there, going from 4th down to 7th in the space of, you call it 1.5 corners really, wouldn't you? Because they went the whole way through to Bose before he was down to 7th. So that's unfortunate. Now that move wasn't something I was personally expecting. I didn't realise that Seville's so far off the pace. I'm just going to have a quick look on Pitwall Live. Yeah, he ran a 1:58.1 on the last lap. Now obviously he's been shoved wide a little bit, so that's not helping. Maybe he might have damage. It's not beyond the realms of possibility, or he's pushed a bit too hard in the early phases with those battles with Dean Riley, and the tyres have just disappeared away from him. It remains to be seen, but not what Jonathan would have wanted. He was, like I said earlier in the stream, he was on for a top 2 in the race at Silverstone before a mistake through Maggots and Beckett's made him drop back into 4th, and he's now dropping back down the order in this first stint in the race here at Paul Ricard this evening. So not the start to the championship you would have wanted, but in Pole Simsport style, generally speaking, for the team championship, still looking pretty good, because Christensen is still sitting fairly comfortably up there in P3.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have had that early pace he had when he was up in 3rd position. Remember when they swapped round Christensen and Seville? Jonathan seems to have fallen really quite a long way back. So whether there has been damage on that car or he boiled the tyres, we don't entirely know. But he doesn't seem to have quite be on the pace he had before. So we've got this lovely shot here. The bodywork looks pristine, doesn't it? It's not a fly to be found. I question
Absolutely.
that. Oh, well, that's that caught our camera car out. Now that's a lap runner getting out of the way, doing it at an unusual place, but in the right way. Just caught out Diop as we're riding on board with. You saw how the car suddenly veered over to the left, but I'm not sure who it was getting out of the way. But they did it in the right way. They got off the racing line and they got out of the gas. It just, as I say, Diop just didn't quite expect it, because he's quite close to the Ferrari of Isilovic. You didn't quite see him until the very last moment, but at least everybody manages to make it through. And still, the Audi getting out of the slipstream. Oh. That's an indication of. Now, Isilovic hit the apex there. It's just Diop can break that little bit later, but where he's losing out, it seems, he's in the just raw top speed. Like I said earlier, the Audi can manoeuvre very, very well. Not that the Ferrari can't, but there seems to be a strength of this Audi at least. It can do the twisties really, really well, but just doesn't quite have that top end. Or, again, coming back to what I said earlier, is Diop's is taking his time. He's not, maybe he's not interested in the kind of the top 5. He's top 4. He's just interested in saving fuel to make the pit stop shorter, which again is a pretty good way of going on these endurance races.
Absolutely, and one thing to bear in mind, I was actually chatting, I said before, I was chatting with Adam earlier in the week, and I know he was testing a couple of different types of setups. I'm pretty sure he had one for qualifying and one for the race. The one for the race was a lot more slippery than the one for qualifying was. He was changing the rear wing on it quite a significant amount. And I mean, that's paying dividends at the moment as Diop goes a little bit wide. Riga Mitchell's still on the back of this. As you can see, Jonathan Seville going wide behind as well. He's got Povolitis for company now as well. Stuart McLeod and Monty Wilson rounding out the top 10, but Ollie Henley and Dave Hedges are pretty close behind the P10 man, according to the timing tower. So we then hop into the front splitter of the Santlop Racing number 25 machine. And like you said, Chris, it's so good on the brakes, this Audi, and it's good in the corners, but I think, yeah, like you say, it could be a number of different things. It could be setup changes between these two guys. It could be just Abdullah just biding his time. There's a lot of different ways to do it. If I was in Abdullah's position now, he's obviously the professional racing driver and I am I'm not. I would have pit by now. I feel like he might well have the pace, but he's wasting it. He was second off his personal best on the last lap alone as Jonathan Seville pits from P7. So he's the first of the real top runners to serve their mandatory pit stop. If I was in Diop's position, I'm pretty confident I would be dropping into the pits at some point soon, if not already, just to try and garner some clear air and try just to make the undercut work on Isilovic, because it seems like at the moment he hasn't got that pace differential to make the move stick.
It certainly seems, from an observer's point of view, that he's trying to get past Ferrari. We're seeing him constantly getting out of the slipstream, putting his car into a different position than the Ferrari is running. You generally, if you're just going to sit there and just go through the miles in someone else's slipstream, you follow their tyre tracks pretty much as damn close as you can. But we're constantly seeing Diop just jump out from the slipstream, remind Iselovic that he's still there. There you go. He's done it again. He's jumped out. Okay, not a full car without, but he's doing it to remind the Ferrari he's still there. Has a look, doesn't go for it. We've seen this lap on lap on lap on lap. And I'm not convinced that, like you said, the Diop has not got the pace to do it, although now he's taken the opportunity on the inside of Ricard. Now that was more opportunity presented itself than he forced the issue, because the Ferrari did go wide. So now this is going to be interesting, because Diop was essentially forced to make the move, or he was going to be in the door of the Ferrari. Is Diop now going to push like mad to try and get away from the Ferrari? This would be a true test of how much pace difference there is, because again, Diop doesn't want to give the slipstream back to Iselovic, or particularly to Regan Mitchell behind him. So I would think if Diop's been biding his time, now he's going to probably push.
He needs to now, doesn't he? We'll keep an eye on the timing charts. And if you want to keep an eye on the timing charts, there's the best link you'll hear all evening. Then you want to head over to pitwall.live and head into the Simsport Solutions service. You can see all of the timings that these drivers are putting in. Diop on the last lap of 155.9, Adam Iselovic a 156.6. You can see here, I think this is Milos Stamenkovic, I think that's Rob Jackson in the Martini Aston Martin going down the Mistral Straight. I can see that Rob Jackson's now retired, so I wonder if this is going to be the cause and effect of what happened there as they go, cutting across, a little bit aggressive from Rob there. And Stamenkovic, didn't catch it under brake. And I thought Rob Jackson was going to hold it there. He very nearly did. I kind of feel that's a little bit 50-50. Obviously, Milos Stamenkovic was a little bit too late on the brakes and caught the back end of the Aston Martin, but it was a little bit aggressive from Jackson. Of course, we have to stay impartial, don't we, Chris? But it seems like one of those that will probably be investigated after the session. And interesting to note as well, to assist with that, there is a stewarding app being run on this race that takes note of any meaningful contact between cars, which does make the reporting of these things all that bit easier, as Diop shaved to defend against Adam Iselovic for the first time. He's finally managed to get past that Ferrari.
Regan Mitchell having a look as well. You saw how suddenly Iselovic had to go to that defensive line. Yeah, that incident with Jackson, I'm a bit surprised if that was the incident that caused Rob Jackson to retire, because it wasn't a huge impact. It would have caused a bit of damage, but it wouldn't have made the car impossible. But then it could have been frustration got the better of him. We don't know. It was a bit clumsy, granted, but it happened. What can we say? Whoa, Dergler side by side with who was he side by side with?
I think that's Monty Wilson. I think the timing chart's just reshaping itself because it takes a Sept or so to do it. So that's Monty Wilson, who is just very close on side. Of course, he's just served his mandatory pit stop. He's come out 8 seconds behind Jonathan Seville, so I think he's managed to gain a little bit of time back on that man. Of course, and funnily enough, we've got it's a Ferrari quartet. That's the word I'm looking for at the moment. We've got a Schumi Get Well Soon car at the front and the back of it. If you take that into account, as Robbie Stapleford, you can see there in the background, has run as comfortable as a race as you can see so far. 22 or onto the 22nd lap. He's got a 22 second or 21 and a bit second lead to Dean Riley, who's then 3 seconds ahead of Rasmus Christensen, who's then 9 seconds on the nose ahead of Abdoulaye Diop. Of course, we've seen has got Adam Iselovic and Regan Mitchell for close company. Mantis Povolitis sitting in 7th place, closing on them slightly as they continue to battle, with Stuart McLeod, Ollie Henley and Dave Hedges rounding out your top 10. One man who has made quiet but very good progress through the field is Sivokas in the number 16 Bentley. He was down in the roughly in the 20s position-wise towards the start of this race, but courtesy of pit stops and just seemingly, I say keeping out of trouble, I obviously haven't seen him get into too many issues, has very quietly but comfortably gone about business and is doing a good job at the moment, Chris.
Ironic, because quiet is not a word you would put with the Bentley. It's a roaring beast. I love the team name, Beaver Grease. I've never encountered Beaver Grease before.
No, I haven't either until this. But yeah, I keep seeing them everywhere now, which is
that's amazing, isn't it? But yeah, absolutely. He's did his personal best sector 1 last time, which was actually a 31.8, which is a pretty damn good first sector time last time around. As we now look at Jonathan Seville post pit stop, he's working his way back through the field, and hopefully he's able to rediscover some of his previous form. Now, I think this is his first lap post pit stop, isn't it? So I
think it's the second one, but he did just make the move on to Tolonera. So it was interesting to note that he he didn't choose to wait for the Mistral straight to make the move, which is interesting. It looks like he's going to have enough time or enough of a gap between himself and Tolinera to not really have to worry too much about that. But it does always make me wonder when people make those moves, especially when you're in equal machinery. You've got a massive straight. It's a 1.2 mile straight. Use it. Use the slipstream and wait till then. But he was obviously in a bit of a rush. He wanted to make the move, and like you said, Chris, hopefully he tries to get some of that pace back that he clearly had at the start of this race, and lost towards the pit stop phase. So we'll have to keep a keen eye out for him. He is the top man who's made their mandatory pit stop. We see Savokas and Hagel coming into the pit lane from 15th, 16th place. But we'll keep an eye on Jonathan Seville, because he will really be that kind of yardstick that we'll be comparing to in terms of pit stops at this moment in time.
Yeah, he will. He has started to rediscover that pace. Well, last time around, it was a 55 flat for the Ferraris. What does he do this time? Bouncing over the last few bumps out of Dupont. Let's see what he does. He now, obviously, climbs up the tower a little bit with other people pitting. A 55-2. Whoops, as... is that
Dombrowskis, yeah.
Dombrowskis, yes, going for a bit of a wander. So the tail's gotten, well, the tail still looks very lively. That's another beaver grease car. Well, maybe some beaver grease on the tyres. So that's not going to help you there. As he's got, who's that coming? He's a Ferrari he's jumping out of the way of. 73 was that? Didn't quite see who that was has just gone through. As we see Dean Riley from second for the Simsport McLaren.
So this is the one. This is the one we want to keep an eye out for, isn't it? Because he was the one, although, yes, Jonathan Seville went down the standings a bit in that first stint towards the end of it, this is really the one we want to keep an eye out for as he goes into the pit lane. He's obviously got a nice entry there, final pit box, so he's going to be out nice and quickly. That's Adam Asalovic and Stuart McLeod in the background who have come in for their pit stop as well. As I mentioned on the stream before this evening, it's a mandatory tyre change that these guys need to make. And Dave Hedges, you can see, has elected to make that pit stop as well. Now, I thought there, I don't know whether this is just the way that the pit camera is set up and how long the pit lane is at Paul Ricard. Adam Asalovic and Dave Hedges and Stuart McLeod just went straight past the camera, so I'm assuming there's more pit boxes further on that we can't see, and they're not just doing some slightly odd things. So Dean Riley doesn't have the pit box right at the end of the pit lane. I stand corrected, but he's off and underway. And Jonathan Seville, he's coming through Garlaban now, I believe. So he's going to be, as we see another car facing the wrong way in the picture-in-picture there, but Dean Riley's going to come back out, and you see, what's that? 7 cars in the pit lane all at the same time. But it was Tom Smith who's apparently spun in the pit lane entry, which is not something you hear too often.
No.
I'm very keen to get a replay of that, because if for anything, and I feel bad for saying this, and I do apologise in advance, Tom, but it would serve for my amusement, I believe. As you see, Robbie Stapleford, Chris, is coming to the pit lane as well. So he's elected to do exactly what we expected, split the race down the middle, and do a 45-minute stint each. And for him, it's been pretty comfortable so far, hasn't it?
It's been a fairly easy run for Mr. Stapleford. Let's see if he's able to maintain that pace in the second phase of the race. I have seen worse than spinning in the pit lane. I've seen the pit lane entry blocked before now. Not here at Paul Ricard. It was a race I commentated on some years ago at Spa. It was in Group C races. It was the Mercedes C4s. Lovely, gorgeous, roaring beast. Someone had... it's a pretty narrow entrance from the bus stop chicane into the Spa pit box. Someone gave it a little bit too much of a squirt coming around that left-hander, and perfectly Austin Powers blocked it. He literally just had like millimeters, 4.5. He just decided, there's nothing I can do about that. As we jump to Mr. Asalovic, trying to get past Mr. Neutelings in the Hot Wheels flavoured Bentley. But
he's not the man you want to be behind when you come out of the pit lane.
No.
As I said earlier, Martin Neutelings is not the man who makes it easy to let you past. And I know for a fact that he's done this before. He did this in season 5, I think it was, at Zandvoort. He went very, very deep into that race and frustrated many a driver because he was so good at defending and putting that Bentley in the right position. No one could get past him, and lost a bucket load of time because his tyres had gone, but he didn't fancy pitting. So hopefully, for Adam and Jonathan's sake, who's right on the back of this as well, he elects to jump out of the way. He doesn't on this occasion, and it will be as you were as they continue on. As you see, Ollie Henley, Regan Mitchell and Mantis Povolaitis all come into the pit lane. Now, Povolaitis will be an interesting one. In fact, Both of them.
Really?
It's going to be very close coming into here. We've got two going into where somewhere they're not going to go. Jonathan Seville goes too deep. Anna Masalovic gets away scot-free. Mark Northeast wouldn't have expected that move to be that easy in the end. Jonathan Seville has again had two of the worst corners of the race so far. He had an awful one going through Seen and Debose a few laps before his pit stop, and the same thing's happened again. He's gone too deep into the first chicane, and as a result has dropped out behind Povolitis, as he was before the pit stop phase, which is going to be a little bit frustrated about, I would think.
Yes, that was basically panic. Replay of the spin in the pit lane.
Sorry, Tom, I hate to do this, but I really need to see how this happened. As you can see him there. Me.
Oh, that was actually quite the shunt. So sorry, Tom, we blamed you for that. But that was that Salovic?
That was Simon Wilkes, I believe, because Salovic would have been further up the order to have not been involved.
Oh,
and I did quite like the fact that Simon gave him a nudge. I think a nudge is probably an understatement, but gave him a nudge, waited for a second, and then went, "No, he's taking too long. I'm going to go," and just drove into the pit lane whilst not waiting for Tom to make his move. I wonder if that's the kind of thing that would be put forward to the stewards. I don't know. It just seems like one of those. If you're both going into the pits, just wait a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's fairly indefensible. Unfortunately, there's no way you can't say I didn't see him, Governor. Oh, we have another drive-through penalty.
And appropriately, the aforementioned Simon Wilkes does get a drive-through penalty. It won't be for that because we haven't got live stewarding, so they're not applying these as and when they come in. But it will be for track limits. So some karma, I think. Yes. Tom be saying in the box at the moment. If he does see that on his timing chart, I'm sure he'll be quite happy to notice that, and I'm sure he'll be doing a Fernando Alonso impression and shouting karma at the screen, seeing that Simon Wilkes has now got that drive-through. I think it's best served cold in that respect.
What is the gap between Stapleford and Riley? We don't know because they're currently lapping. But I see on the lap chart that Dean Riley first time lap after his outlap, so 54.3. There's personal best. I'm not sure if that's the fastest lap of the race, but dear Lord, that is fast. So he's done the stop, and now with some fresh boots on, he's really pressing on. We don't know what Robbie Stapleford's time is yet, because he's only done his outlap. So we'll see what the gap is. 24 seconds still. Crikey, that's a big old gap to close down with less than 40 minutes. So we're over the halfway stage now. That's going to be a big old gap. But wow, Dean Riley, if nothing else, is looking to build up the gap to Rasmus Christensen behind. It's around about 5 seconds, or was when they came through the timing beam last time around. Oh, Ollie Henley having an argument with who's he having? Was that
Monty Wilson? Yep.
Monty Wilson, yeah. And that's a lovely kind of Lotus flavoured Ferrari, which is a weird sentence to say. If you think of when Lotus re-entered F1, they had that kind of green and yellowish kind of colour scheme going on. That's what that immediately made me think of. I'm trying not to think of the Pulse War one.
Yeah, you're not a fan, are you?
The team are great. The drivers are wonderful. The cars look great, but I'm sorry, it's the pink. It's the pink that doesn't work for me.
It's an acquired taste.
Yes, I said this last week at the VTCC, and I will stick with it. But no disrespect, man, because their drivers are absolutely fantastic.
They are very, very quick as well, aren't they?
They're an incredible squad.
Yeah. As is shown with one of their drivers. Well, they qualified P3 and P4, P3 and P5. Sorry. Just to go back to, we talked about Robbie Stapleford and Dean Riley, their pace. So Dean Riley went fast away, went whooey, as someone jumps out the way. I think that might have been Sam Pearce jumping out the way potentially there. But anyway, going back to that, Dean Riley 154.3, I think we said on the first lap out of the pits. Robbie Stapleford goes, hold my beer, 153.5.
Wow,
cool,
53.
Cool as you like with a purple final sector as well. So that man has got pace to spare. And I mean, that wasn't far off what he put in qualifying. I think he's 2/10 off his qualifying pace, which, considering he's running at least probably 40 minutes of fuel, that's quite ominous pace. And
purple sector 3 as well, so one of the quickest sectors, and he's the only man in the 49.9 for the final sector. That is scary, absolutely terrifying. As we ride on board still with Ollie Henley, having an argument with Mr. Wilson. He's just biding his time there. He didn't close in at all on the green Ferrari in the 776. I thought Neuterling to come in. I thought the Bentley had come into the pits, but the tower is showing that he hasn't. I had it in my head he did. But he's probably doing this again. He's probably just going a long time into the race before pitting very, very late, which, of course, is perfectly entitled to do. What strategy you run is entirely up to you, as long as you do pit. Oh, there we go. We just spotted him slightly further up. Well, what I was going to say is when that pack was very close, I've just been distracted again by Mr. Stapleford's fastest lap of the race, a 53.2. He's just put on the board. That is the fastest of the race. Whoops, as Ollie Henley's just come off the road. And now Mr. Neuterling's come in. Maybe he was listening to me. What I was coming on to say was, despite the fact that he may well have been on a different strategy, well, he clearly was on a different strategy to those behind him, that was on-track position. He was under no obligation to get out of the way. Now, of course, they had that kind of big panic moment when 6 cars were trying to enter, 2 meters of track all together. But he was under no obligation to let them through. Some people may disagree with that. I'm sorry, it's racing. If you don't have to let somebody go, why should you? Some people may opt to do so if they feel they're going to lose time by actively defending. But if he's just going to run his line and not lose any time by running his own line, he's under no obligation to let anybody go. I know there's different people have different opinions on that, but racing's racing. You're there for your own race too.
Absolutely, I'm firmly with you on your opinion on that, Chris. Like you say, he's in that position. He's not a lap down. He's on the same lap as those guys. He's more than entitled to hold on to that position, and I know that he enjoys that as well, because I've had conversations with him. I actually had a chat with him after Zandvoort, I mentioned earlier, a couple of seasons ago. He was more than happy to annoy people. I'll go for the stream appropriate description of that, as we see Ollie Henley looking up the inside of Monty Wilson. That's a move that's been shaped up really nicely there. Got a really good exit out of Steen. Monty Wilson just went a little bit wide into Debose and just gave up the position. I'm hearing that Kieran Vidago unfortunately has retired through technical issues. I said earlier he has been susceptible to the odd technical issue here and there. In fact, he was running in P3, I think it was, in the GT4s here at Paul Ricard last season, and unfortunately disconnected. So unfortunate for him. Hopefully we will see him back in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm sure he'll bring the pace. But in the meantime, I'm sure, Chris, you'll be looking forward to commentating on him in the VTCCs next Sunday as well, like you did last week. Absolutely.
I love commentating on these guys, and no matter what, in what or where, right? I'm quite happy. I've always said I'd be quite happy commentating on milk float racing if the racing was good.
That sounds like it would yield some pretty good racing, to be fair.
It probably would, yeah. I mean, maybe with a few bigger engines in there, but yeah, these guys are brilliant racers. Even those towards the tail end of the field are still very, very good at what we're seeing here. It's easy to lose that perspective, isn't it? When you've got aliens such as Mr. Stapleford here. I mean, Zancho's such a great racing stable that in a way I'm not surprised he's doing well if he's representing that particular squad. It's easy to lose perspective on how good this entire field is, because Mr. Stapleford's nearly 30 seconds ahead of anybody else. We're looking at Regan Mitchell. They're very close to Vasiljevic going into scene. And like I say, Regan Mitchell in the VTCC, it was third after the event, so after 3 races. So I can assure you, he is blindingly quick. Sometimes it's the car, sometimes it's the track, sometimes it's luck of the draw. People say you make your own luck. Well, that is true to a point, as we now look at as if Sivokas in the Beaver Grease. I was going to make me chuckle, Beaver Grease Racing Bentley. Just on the back of the tricky to pass Marquez in the Aston. That's a little bit deep. Well, it's not deep. It's a good way to go. Well caught, sir. Sign that man up to the cricket team. That was a great catch. And then we have the golf-coloured Aston. Now, I think Thomas is trying to let the first Aston back into its position, and in comes... is that Leme that's trying to make a move there?
I think so. You got
Pinchbeck. Sorry,
and you got Pinchbeck, haven't you? Yeah, Chris is. It's a horrible position to be in, isn't it? I was in it a couple of weeks ago when I was racing. you make that unfortunate mistake where you give the nod to someone because you've made a mistake, you've hit them, whether it was an accident on purpose or whatever. I mean, it should never be on purpose, but you get the point.
Yeah.
If you make that knock, and I did it really early on in a race, and I was in this horrible position that Savocas at the moment where you need to let them back through, but there's so many people near you. You end up losing about 4 or 5 positions as a result just because of that one tap. So it's really difficult to manage those sorts of things. And Chris, I mean, obviously we saw him get caught up. We saw him in that spin a little bit earlier, which was unfortunate to see. Of course, got caught up and spun around and lost a few positions. One person who has had a quieter race but still eventful for different reasons is the person we can see on screen now, Sam Pearce. It's her first race with Simsport Racing. I know that she was a little bit nervous coming to this one because obviously it's difficult when you're riding with new people that you've not gone with before. As Chris Pinchbeck has got Wagner Marquez, very, very close for company there. But Sam's had a difficult race to say the least because you've got to take into consideration the back mark and stuff like that. But from what I've seen, you've done a fantastic job of it, and I'm sure that you get used to who you're driving with, get used to the car, the track, and things like that. I'm sure that pace will come. We'll start to see her fighting up towards the front end. But in the meantime, Chris Pinchbeck makes a double.
No, again!
Tandem drifting through seam between Savocas and Marquez there. Good.
Wow.
Chris Pinchbeck has managed to do both of them dirty in the space of a mile and a half, coming onto the Mistral straight and into seam. And then, just for good measure, Wagner Marquez and Thomas Savocas just elected to do a little bit of tandem drifting through the fastest corner on the circuit, which seems like a sensible thing to do.
Involuntary tandem drifting at that. But that was again very well held by Savocas and Marquez, and Pinchbeck just absolutely did a brilliant job of capitalising on that and squeezing past both of them. You would have thought if he was any more hesitant, he'd have been in that, and that would have, I suspect the result would have been very, very different. That's Francisco Leme that's looking to get involved in a particular battle with, that's Kelsey right ahead. Is that Hagel? That's Hagel behind. So you got to think we are over an hour into this race with half an hour still we're just about to hit an hour's gone. A third of the race still to go, and still brilliant fighting going on. There's Regan and the son of it side by side on the Mistral straight. I said at the top of the show, didn't I, that in the final half an hour is when you'll see less of the kind of just mile turning and strategic following going on. That's when you start seeing people doing, right, come on then, let's see what you've got, and really pulling the moves out. As I say, Leme in that three-way battle we were looking at, I just love the fact that we still have got 2 or 3 or 4 cars fighting over the same bit of tarmac with only half an hour still to go.
Absolutely, and you can see how close these guys. I mean, obviously we've got people on contrasting. Obviously, now Sam Pearce just being overtaken on the back straight, doing a very good job of getting out of the way, because of course these guys are so close together. It's the last thing you want to do is get caught up in this. But I mentioned it earlier on in the broadcast. It's a testament to the commitment that these guys put into their craft in these races. They're battling for 15th place, which for the grand scheme of things is still going to yield you points, but it's not like you're fighting for a win or anything, or even a top 3. These guys are fighting for a mid-pack position, but they're still giving it absolutely everything. And that's the beauty of this, and that's actually, I think it's Ranj Kelsey at the front of this little train here. They've got a nice big gap behind, but it's really good to see that they're fighting no matter where they are, and that's exactly what you get out of the Simsport Racing community. And as I think you've mentioned already, Chris, if people who are watching at the moment, if you want to get on track, if you want to join these guys, or you want to be a friend of mine and Chris in the commentary box as well, there is a Discord link in the description. You can jump into there. There is still spaces, although there's not many of them left. I think there's only 4 of the 50 spaces left in this GT3 Championship. There's spaces left. There's 4 rounds left. Get involved, get stuck in, and get involved in this fantastic race. Hagel looks to go up the inside, nearly catches Leme off guard, but has to settle for P18 for just a little bit longer.
A tad late, Mr. Marcus, but I wonder whether he missed his breaking point there, because that looked really, really, really late. And there's no need to be that desperate. You're not that close to the checkered flag. But yeah, absolutely easy. So I'm such an advocate of imploring people to give it a try, because you might have people, oh, go on, Mr. Hagel, is he going to get that one to work? Is Francesca going to hold on? Well defended. Oh. Well defended, yeah. Francesca did not let that one go. He could have easily backed out with thinking, oh, well, move done. He was just like, nope, not today. The Aston remains ahead. Yeah, I think this one's a little bit more straightforward, though. Marcus, a big helping of Slipstream. Side by side, that's going to be done well before they get to the braking zone, I dare say. Although the Aston's like, well, maybe not.
Yeah, Aston's not a slouch in a straight line. I mean, the McLaren's not the quickest, but it's good in the high downforce corners. There you go, makes the move. Just gives him a little.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh dear, oh dear. Well, I mean, there's an argument for not allowing enough racing room because Lemay had to go somewhere. And he was being forced very much onto the bollards, and there was not enough room there. So, well,
that was a really, really unfortunate coming together. That looked to me like Francisco Lemay was trying to avoid a final track cut warning, because I know for a fact, because I've made the mistake myself, if you go past that, if you're past those bollards, which, as you mentioned, Chris, I think you've mentioned, that are almost indestructible because you pop back up every time, that if you go past them, it is a slam dunk penalty. It's a slam dunk track cut warning. You can't avoid it. And you can see there, he's given the position back, has he? I don't really know what's happened. Oh, yeah, Lemay's given. There's a race leader. Of course, yes. Sorry, they came together, and Lemay's given the position back, and as a result, I think that's Crixtolitis there in the 969 Bentley. That's getting a little bit close, as you can then see. Hagel's actually going into the pits, which is interesting. I wonder if he got a fairly hefty whack of damage. Ollie Henley has got a drive-through. It's all happened, and I'm sat here, Chris, thinking, what on earth SRBR stands for, which is the team name that Lemay drives for. Beaver Grease Racing Bentley gets very, very close, and Lemay, he was like this last week again. He got caught up in a few incidents. Some of them were a little bit awkward, but he was again a magnet for, I wouldn't say incidents, he was a magnet for action, and he's proved exactly the same this week as well. I've commentated on him twice now, including tonight, and he seems to have action follow him wherever he goes. If he's driving now, I bet he's having the best time, because he's constantly racing into the people, and that's what you want.
And probably once the checkered flag falls, he'll be absolutely knackered. Because when you're just constant action, constantly thinking, constantly either planning your move ahead or defending from a move behind, it is very taxing. So I admire the fact that he's still going and still really giving it everything he's got. So fair play. And we have a side-by-side going on there. That is...
Wagner Marquez getting past Ranj Kelsey.
That's down at Bendor, yes.
Yeah, a move that I'll be honest, I didn't expect to be happening, because I thought that Ranj was behind Marquez. Obviously, it's been a bit of a change. Wonder if Marquez maybe got caught up in, maybe he had a little incident, a little off, so maybe dropped back behind him and has made the move. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, a bit of an odd one there. You see Ollie Henley's in the pit lane serving his drive-through. He's got that little P next name. That is done. We'll see where he comes out. He's going to come out ahead of these guys, so I imagine he's going to drop out in around about 13th place. And Ranj Kelsey's got to work again to try and make the move on Wagner Marquez. We seem to be focusing a lot on these SRBR Aston Martins, but it's just simply because they are where the action is right now, which is great to see. Yep,
absolutely. That's a good run from the Iron Lynx Ferrari. It's not much of a run down towards Hotel, but he's got the inside line. Well played, Ranjiv Kelsey. That was an exceptional move. It's such a short run from Verrières to Hotel. He committed to that.
Run, didn't he? Yeah. Only thing is now, he's going on to the longest back straight on the calendar, and he's got a car directly behind him, and nothing ahead of him to help him with that toe. As you can see, Ollie Henley's come out behind Chris Pinchbeck, so he's done his drive-through penalty. He's back out on track, and he's right behind the man in P12, and he's almost pushing him down the Mistral straight. Goes to the outside. That's not necessarily where the move is going to be made. We'll see if Chris is going to defend this aggressively or not. It's very close. There's a little bit of wee came out there. That was very, very close indeed. But Ollie Henley, balls to the wall stuff. That was as assertive as you like, and I think that was a fantastic move, wasn't it, Chris? Because he kept his foot in it, and there was a compliance from both of them to an extent there, and that was really good racecraft from both drivers in that little bit overtaking move.
There were mere pixels between them. That was so close. I was expecting another, sliding moment going on at scene, but well done to both drivers for executing that move properly. Coming back to what we were saying earlier about encouraging others to take part in these series, it's not just ACC that we have tournaments on. We've mentioned the VTCC, the Virtual Touring Car Cup. That is on Assetto Corsa. If that is your particular want, we run that here at SSR, of which you, Mr. Wressell, are in.
I am indeed.
Yes, you're 9th in the pro standings. So always recommended to sign up and get involved. Whether you're new to sim racing or whether you're a veteran, we would always welcome any new fresh faces or racing aces to take part in our leagues. May have lunatics like me and David shouting about your on-track antics. We always welcome you aboard. I come back to what you were saying about Sam earlier, Rob. Fair play for giving it a try. I mean, this is really baptism by fire for early in your sim racing, I say, career, and this year's. Hagel's retired. We've just been informed. That'll be why he's coming to the pits. That's a shame. I mean, it's fair play for giving it a go. How had she done a great deal of sim racing before this? Do we know?
I have been chatting with her a little bit in the community. I know a lot of the guys have been way more of, I was going to say kind to help. It's not like I've not offered to help. They've been more available to help because they're far more knowledgeable about GT3 cars than I am. I know for a fact there is one thing I do definitely know is the fact that she's much more comfortable in the McLaren than she is in the Ferrari. However, due to the fact that the championship already started, she wasn't able to change it. So she's driving in a car that she's not entirely familiar / comfortable with. So that will make an impact on it. But from what I understand, she's throwing herself into the deep end. She's running in a few different championships at the moment, and that's the best way to do it. Jump in feet first, get stuck in, and the best way you'll learn is by racing with these guys week in, week out, and that pace will come. That will 100% come. If it's early doors, then that pace will come, and I guarantee come the end of this season at Suzuka, she will be fighting for some decent points. I will tip my hat when that is the case. I've no doubt about it.
100%, yeah. The point I'm trying to make is don't be afraid to try it, because it can be very daunting when you look at, again, using Robbie Stapleford's race as an example. Of course, that's the very top end. He's a very seasoned racer. He's champion for a reason. But for some that are maybe newer to sim racing or don't have that level of experience or maybe don't have time to practice that hard, always implore you to give it a try. I mean, you really have nothing to lose. You'll, as you alluded to, David, you'll have people that are going to be happy to help you get up to speed a bit quicker. Just to encourage you to improve. And I mean, who knows where it will take you? I mean, there's a lot of championships out there that cater for a great deal of different cars, tracks, talents, etc., etc. So I would always implore you to give it a try. I've always been a big advocate of it. And certainly in the last few years, sim racing has gotten it's gotten a lot of popularity, and quite rightly so. Don't let the aliens in the community, as great as they are, and wonderful people, but they're just godlike fast. Don't let that put you off. Give it a try. Everyone starts somewhere, whether you're a newbie on a pad or a seasoned veteran on a wheel. Come along, give it a go.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Chris. As we turn our focus back to what's happening on the track, Jonathan Seville still sat behind Adam Misalovic. He's playing the Diop role from the first stint, but Diop seems to have made a little bit of a move forward at the moment. He's currently sitting in P4. He's got a gap of 5 seconds back to Regan Mitchell, and in fact that's Regan Mitchell in the background of the pit, or the foreground of the picture there. And it's a train of Ferraris to an extent. Christensen sat in third, Diop in fourth, and it's Mitchell, Asalovic and Seville in that order, as Crixtolitis gets a drive through for track limits. Is probably what I think that's about the 4th or 5th we've had now, which is unsurprising because as you mentioned, it does divide opinion, this track. I think as a racing track, I think it's very good. I know that people aren't particularly big fans, and I know you aren't, Chris, of the exterior to it, the runoff areas. I know that it's different abrasions depending on the colours of the track. But as we see, I'm going to stop rambling now, as Jonathan Seville, lovely move up the inside of Adam Misalovic, very compliant for the two of them there. Very similar to the move we saw between Pinchbeck and Sivokas, I think it was, and Henley rather, a couple of laps ago. Jonathan Seville showing shades of his start of the race pace and gets himself up into 6th position. One person we've not said a huge amount so far, we've mentioned him a couple of times, but one man who's doing a very good job in the race up until this point is Dave Hedges. He's just on the precipice of a top 10 finish. He's got Monty Wilson a few seconds up the road. He's only 3 seconds behind, so he's still got the chance to close that gap down, and that would be a very good finishing position for Dave. I know he's been out with some with some back issues in the past. I know he dropped out of the GT4 season last season because of that, so it's good to see him back out on the track. He's become synonymous with that number 88 car. And I'm hearing he was actually getting a booster seat, mate, so you could actually see what was going on. So broadcast director Steve Proudly tells me. But he's closing in on Monty Wilson, Chris. He's got a couple of seconds behind him now. He's running roughly similar pace. They're running the 56.1s at the moment, so they're running similar. You can see them on track now. You can see the actual difference between them on the track. As Robbie Stapleford, hold the phone. Drive through for Robbie Stapleford. What's the gap at the front? 33 seconds. That could put the cat amongst the pigeons. Dean Riley might not be out of a chance of a win just yet, Chris.
I did say, didn't I? You may well have a comfortable lead, but that can change. Now, I was alluding the pit stop phase to change that, which of course it didn't. If anything, the gap's gone bigger. Now, I'm not 100% sure what the overall pit lane pit lane loss is here. Now, I'm expecting Stapleford to remain in the lead. I don't think Dean Riley is going to overcome that gap, but of course Dean Riley is going to see the fact that Robbie Stapleford is right ahead of him. Well observed there. Hot Wheels Bentley, bravo. It's going to be fairly close.
I've just had a look. Ollie Henley was a 31-second pit stop when he went in. Look at this now. This is Dean Riley, coming down the back straight. It's not close in the long run, but that is a hell of a lot closer than he was before. Dean Riley is now well back in with a chance of this race win if he can continue to put the pressure on. That's a weird one, Chris, isn't it? Because Robbie's in control of this race. He's got absolutely no need to push whatsoever in comparison to what he'd normally do. He shouldn't really be getting a drive-through, should he? He has no reason to be getting those extension or cut warnings, but that just shows how much he wants it, doesn't it? He wants to be the fastest man on every single lap of every single race. And it nearly cost him a race win there. And it still could if he doesn't get his head back in properly over the final 15 minutes.
Comes back to the mental discipline. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. If he's that determined. Now, it could be a mistake. Even the greats make mistakes. But you do have to do a few of them to get that dreaded drive-through. And we still have racing to do. 15 minutes left of it. It's not impossible. It's still a bit of a gap between Stapleford and Riley, but that was close to the markers. Yeah, like you say, Stapleford doesn't have to push, but that racing instinct is difficult to suppress. You want to push. You want to get the fastest lap, which you already had. So
absolutely, it is difficult. Like you say, you can't just switch off going fast in this situation. No. It is so difficult. Like I said, we've all been there. We all want to go as fast as we can on every single lap, and you can see now that is. So as you just saw going through Detour there, you might see it through DuPont as well. That's Robbie Stapleford in the foreground picture. That is Dean Riley just hitting the exit of DuPont there. I think he just went past Sam Pearce in the background as well. She did a very good job of getting out of the way and not offering up too much of a detriment to Riley. 5.1 seconds is the gap. We have 14 minutes remaining, and though there's battles all the way up and down the field, the battle for first, Chris, has just got a little bit spicier, hasn't it?
Somewhat, absolutely. We'll see how that one unfolds. There's Isalovic, who's been, close or within the top 5 all race long, is now finds himself in 7th position. Johnny Seville has certainly rediscovered the earlier pace that he'd lacked for a while. Still getting in the 55 flats in the Ferrari as he did last time around. So he's really pressing on to make up for last time. And Adam Isalovic now in 7th place, but still very close to the back of the 97 Ferrari. I love the fact earlier when you mentioned when you said Steve Proudly said this comment. I love the fact you handed that off pretty quick. that made me chuckle. It wasn't me, it was him.
Steve lands himself in hot water too many times, and I don't do the same thing myself. even if it was his birthday yesterday, and a big shout out for Steve. It was his birthday yesterday. I'm sure he's had a lovely weekend, and he gets to spend the end of it chatting. Or he's not chatting with us. He just has to sit and listen to us.
He shouts at us every now and then when we
misbehave. and change the cameras, which he does do a fantastic job of. And speaking of changing the cameras, focus has gone to Stuart McLeod. We've not seen a huge amount of Stuart. He's one of those people who's very quietly gone about his business so far in the Not Fast, Just Furious.
Just Furious like that.
Brilliant name. So we've got, oh, goodness me.
That was close.
Speed differential was enormous. I know the Porsche isn't very quick in a straight line in comparison, but goodness me. I was just about to say we've got the fight of the two of the best team names on the circuit. We've got Not Fast, Just Furious and No Top Speed Racing. Mantis Povolitis' team name was very evident there. He just seemed to be swallowed up by that Ferrari. So much so, Stuart nearly ploughed into the back of him in the end. It was a nice clean move, but I don't think Stuart saw that coming, did he?
That was a bit late. Yeah, so it's one of the fastest on the straight compared to one of the slowest. You saw a very live demonstration of that speed difference between the two. As we now look at Detonanet on the back of, is that Tom Smithy's, Brad? It is indeed. So the 89 Ferrari and the 330 having their own argument.
Absolutely. It's just looking back at the moment. So we have lost a few drivers. You can see Marcus Hagel at the bottom of the timing chart. He's the last one we lost. He dropped back when he had that coming together, I think, between himself and I think it was Leme in the end. And Pavlovich comes into the pits as well. Hopefully he's not another retiree. It'd be a shame to see him drop off. But we have lost Rob Jackson, Ash Cooper and Yannick Muller, Kieran Vidago, Milos Stamenkovic, Arnes Morkus, Simon Wilkes, and Kaz Dombrowskis, and finally Marcus Hagel. It's a shame to see those guys lose. Obviously a mixture of different things, I'm sure. Could be damage, could be hardware issues, of course. We'll class them as reliability issues, shall we? It sounds a bit more true to form that way. But we change focus to, well, we weren't going to change focus to Stave Hedges, but we're going actually back to this battle for 8th between Mantis Povolitis and Sebastian McLeod. As you mentioned, Chris, we're looking at probably one of the fastest compared to one of the slowest cars in a straight line, and you can see there Povolitis can't get anywhere near Stuart McLeod, despite the fact Stuart's got no one ahead of him for any sort of tow. He can't get near him, and he's actually being pulled away from. Shows the difference there between the two. So Stuart's made that move, barring mistakes from the Ferrari driver. I can't see him losing that back from an on-track pass at all. But watch him close up as they go through these little twisty sections, because that Porsche is so quick in those sections of the track. Look at him go. You see different lines as they go into the corner there, catches the apex. Ooh, not the best thing to do in the Porsche, because that split you around as it nearly did, but he held it nicely. 10 minutes left to go. 6.6 is the gap at the front, with a 7-second gap between Riley and Christensen. Robbie Stapleford is still leading the way. Abdoulaye Diop has managed to get himself up the places in the pit stop phase. He sits in 4th. I'm just understanding that Robbie Stapleford, you can see it on the timing chart, was a second quicker on the last lap compared to Dean Riley. That is some ominous pace from the Zamsho Simsport car, but I quite like it because it's car number 1 in P1 and it's car number 2 in P2, which is always nice.
It's not been engineered, that's the way they ended up.
Absolutely. If we can get Francisco Leme up to P3 by the end of the race, I'll be a very happy man.
I mean, well, something quite catastrophic would have happened. I mean, no disrespect, but Leme down in 17th position, and we'd need a meteor to land on to get that one to happen. I wonder if anybody else has seen this. Can we just get a camera shot of Mr. Stapleford, please, Mr. Proudly? Or Smash It Proudly, as we nicknamed you last week. Does anyone else see the old Vodafone symbol on the front of the car? Oh, no, it's blue. But does anyone else see that, or was it just me?
That is, yeah, it's not far off, is it? Don't tell them, because Amchi might have a little court case on hand. But yeah, I can see the similarities.
I've been looking at that all race long and thinking, is it just me? But yeah, I know Zancho have had that for a while, and I do love that livery. It's
a really clean livery car, isn't it? I've seen it on so many different cars now, because I know that the guys racing pretty much every single platform under the sun. It's one of those. It's like that Golf livery we've seen on Pinchbeck.
Yeah.
It's one of those liveries that seems to work on whatever car it goes on.
It's very distinct as well. If you see it, you know exactly. There's some liveries that maybe blend into one another. That one doesn't. It's just absolutely great to see. Much like the Denso one that we've just seen go out of the shot, and Dean Riley doing what he can, but he just doesn't have an answer to the inhuman pace of Robbie Stapleford. And that, in saying that, Dean Riley's pace has been absolutely stunning. Very worthy podium position he's got for himself, but it's not done yet. We still have another. I can't believe we are in the last 10 minutes. That was certainly for us. It's absolutely flown by. We hope those watching either live or post-event have enjoyed it as much as we have, because that really hasn't felt like nearly an hour and a half.
It hasn't at all. No, it's absolutely flown by. Especially, I mean, I remember looking at it what feels like 10 minutes ago, and we had half the race left to go, and every one of their mothers had gone into the pit lane at the same time. It feels like it's absolutely flown by. You're absolutely right, Chris. As you can see, Mantis Armalis is the hashtag no-name in the no-name team car, which is original to say the least. You can I think he's put a lot of time and thought into that team name as Mantis, which is very good indeed. He's very close to the back of Martin Dogal. He's closer before the chicane. I wonder if he just got a little bit out of shape. Seemed like he missed the apex going into the first couple of corners. Closes up through here and takes that really wide line. I've raced at Paul Ricard a few times before, especially in the GT4s, and that was a line that I quite liked because you get a really, really good run onto the back straight. And if you've got that pace, especially when, like I say, he's following a Ferrari, it's quick in a straight line, he's going to want to try and get as much of a benefit as possible. Now, Totola there is not always... It just shaped really, really aggressively to the inside. Does Gala there, gets right out the way. In fact, is he? Oh, he's not slowing down. Sorry, no, I thought he was getting out the way. I mean, I'm not sure what's stranger there, Chris. The fact that Gala's got out of the way as quickly as he did, or the fact that Mantis Armalis hasn't followed him to continue the slipstream. Because I think if he did, he might have had a better chance of getting past him on the back straight there. But instead, he's sat behind him and is going to continue to do so for at least probably the next half a lap or so.
Yeah, I'm as confused as you on that one. There was this very sudden move from Degala. I think he was expecting Armalis to follow him, and Armalis just went, well, you go over there then. I would imagine that Armalis thought that he had more pace than he did, but where at this stage of the race, you know how much pace you've got, so I'd be surprised if it was that. I've got no answer to that. I mean, I'm rather confused on what happened there, but yeah, I've seen it a couple of times where drivers suddenly kind of jump to one side of the track from the other, but of course these guys know what they're doing, unless he just had a sudden technical issue, maybe I don't know, a lag spike or anything. We didn't see it from this side. Generally lag you spot from a spectator standpoint, but it looked okay from here. Oh, there's our race leader stuck behind someone. Oh, never mind. No, no sooner do I say that.
Not for too long.
No. Oh, that's Leme. He's just gone past the number one, passing the number 3. Francisco Leme doing a good job getting out of the way of the race leader. I'm sure Dean Riley would have preferred a little assistance there. Oh, here we go again. Salovic on the back of Seville, and actually not far away from Regan Mitchell either. There you see Regan. There he is at the bottom of the shot there. So that three-way battle I don't reckon is resolved yet. Johnny Seville's got a little bit of a gap, as you can quite clearly see, between himself and the 69 Ferrari, but Salovic is going to make Johnny Seville work for this, I suspect.
Yeah, he's not going to make it easy for him, is he? I've just noticed on the track map, Martin Degala looked like he was off coming on to the Mistral straight there before. So I don't know if we can get a replay to see what's happened. There is Adam Salovic, is very, very close going into Bendel there. Two Ferraris have they've been very close this entire stint, realistically. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Jonathan Seville came out behind them. Adam made the move when we had that very interesting 5 cars into one corner situation about half an hour ago. But once Jonathan Seville got past, he's not really had I don't want to say he's not had the pace, but he's just not had the differential in pace between himself and Adam to make the gap work, has he? He's not really close up to Regan Mitchell. This gap has stayed static for the majority of the race. You see Adam just showing him the inside there, just in case he's not aware, just reminding Jonathan that he's actually still behind him. He's still pretty close, but with 3.5 or 3 3/4 minutes left of this race, Chris, it's where you need to start making these moves count. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you make the move now, you've got depending on where Robbie is on the track, so he's going to be the one who calls when the final lap, whether we're on the final lap in 2 or 3 laps. You might have potentially 2 laps where you're under threat from the slipstream, but if you leave it too late, you then have to be super aggressive in the move, and you might not pull off, or you might even cause yourself some issues, maybe some damage, and lose yourself some positions that way. So it's a balancing act, isn't it? Because do you go now and do you put yourself under threat over the next couple of laps, or do you leave it and go for a last ditch move, send it and hope for the best? For me, I'd probably get it done now if I could, because knowing me, I'd probably cause an accident if I did it on the last lap. I'd be too overconfident, and I'd end up in the wall or something, and that'd be I'd be worse off.
It's difficult, isn't it? What have we got?
See, replay. I think this is Martin Degala. as he just gets onto the curb, coming through there. Armalis is on the inside. It's a bit innocuous. I'm hoping. It looks like, that's a bit naughty, unless he's going to stop, is he, Armalis?
Yeah,
it looks like he will. I'm glad he did. I thought he was going to carry on going there, and I'd give him a little slap on the wrist from the commentary box a bit, but he hasn't done. And in the meantime, Adam Misalovic is still behind Jonathan Seville, so no change of position there.
I don't think Jonathan Seville could ever really miss the fact that this bright yellow Ferrari face is staring at him. I mean, that is, the yellow element of that Ferrari is very, very bright indeed. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's a difficult balance to strike, isn't it? You don't want to make the move too early and give your opponents time to counter you. But equally, you don't want to leave it too late and miss an opportunity to actually make the move at all. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't know which way I go. I think, like you, I'd want to get the move done with the knowledge that I've got time to try and either try it again if it doesn't work, or put more faith in defending that particular move if that goes down to it. As we now see, now this is going to be interesting. That's a back marker that Regan Mitchell's catching. Is that going to force Regan to be part of this, or can Regan sneak past the back marker on the Mistral Straight so that they don't become part of this battle? This is going to be it's going to be interesting to see. Is that is a back marker, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's
not DL.
I think it's crystallitis. I think it looked like a very big Bentley. I think it is. It's either him or no. I think it is crystallitis because Sivokas is in the other Beaver Grease Bentley. And he's up in P14, and obviously as we know, Robbie Stapleford's not actually overtaken P14 on track yet. So that's going to be that'll be crystallitis there. It does throw a cat amongst the pigeons for this, doesn't it? Misalovic goes very, very sideways. I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, he did tell me he doesn't normally spin. He still hasn't, to be fair to him. If he watches his back, which I know he likes to watch his back, he'll be very pleased, and I'm sure he'll be messaging me at some point once he's watched it to say, I told you I wouldn't spin. Because he's got 30 seconds and whatever of the lap left, and he hasn't done it yet. So I'm hoping that will stay the same, because otherwise he'll tell me off. And that's something I want to be a part of.
Now, where is our race leader? Where is Mr. Stapleford? There he is.
He is right. That's just going on to the Mistral Straight. So this will be the final
lap. Yes.
So no more laps after this. So it's going to be one more chance for Adam Misalovic. It's going to be one more chance for everyone else as well. And Robbie Stapleford, I mean, realistically, Chris has run this race as comfortably as he possibly could, apart from that little drive-through, which I will be asking him about in the post-race interviews, because I want to know why he thought it was applicable to do that and put himself under a bit of pressure. But other than that, and other than the little bit of pressure he was under in qualifying, because it did look like it was very close at that point as well, he's run this race to a T almost faultlessly. He's got the fastest lap. He's ran streets ahead of everyone else, and barring any miraculous issues now, it's going to be 2 from 2 for the start of the season for Robbie Stapleford and Sanchez Simsport.
Yeah, it's a perfect start, isn't it? It's got some back markers which he hasn't had any issues with leading up to this point. He's not going to have a problem with that one either, jumping off the road like that. Well played. But yeah, and you can't fault him. You can't say that was luck. You can't say he inherited the league. Every time he's built up the lead, he's doing it lap on lap on lap on lap with such amazing consistency that the win is absolutely deserved.
Absolutely, as you can see, weaving onto the start-finish straight. It's another win. It's 2 from 2 for Robbie Stapleford and Zancho Simsport. He takes the win here. Paul Ricard in round number 2 here at Simsport GT3 Championship. That is Dean Riley crossing the line in second place, closer than we might have originally expected, courtesy of that drive-through for the Zancho Simsport number 1 car. Rasmus Christensen rounds out the top 3 with a really good result again for Paul Simsport. And it looks like we'll see him come across the line eventually. That's Martin Oyton who's come across there. I think it was Abdoulaye Diop in a moment's time will come across for a very admirable 4th place. You see he's just crossed the line there with Regan Mitchell, Jonathan Seville and Adam Misalovic running very closely, but no change in the end between those 3. Stuart McLeod, Mantis Powolitis and Monty Wilson rounds out the top 10. Dave Hedges not able to get that position in the end. Ollie Henley and Chris Pinchbeck, Thomas Savokas and Ranjiv Kowsley ran at your top 15, with Wagner Marquez, Francisco Leme, Stein Paspon, Martin Oytelings and Tom Smith running at your top 20. Crixtolitis, Sebastian Tolinera, Martin Dergala, excuse me, Mantas Armalis, Zlatko Pavlovich, Steve Parker, and Sam Pearce round out your running cars. And I look, Chris, I know we said this on effectively his cooling down lap, which is the final lap of the race, but he's on it now. Robbie Stapleford has been untouchable in that entire race, hasn't he? And
Yeah.
I said with Toby was commentating with me on a couple of weeks ago, I said that was a statement victory for him then. I think given the closeness in qualifying, that's an even bigger statement in the race there, because although people were as quick as him on one lap pace, he did that for the whole 47 laps almost without fail. And that is a massive statement for this championship. Yeah. And fair play to the lad. He's a young lad. I know him very well. And yeah, I mean, he's absolutely smashed out of the park, hasn't he?
Yeah, completely. And every time Dean Riley had a quicker lap to answer with, Stapleford just came back with a better one. Like you say, hold my beer, I've got this. Yeah, no one had an answer to him. And like I said earlier, there wasn't inherited. It wasn't by luck. It was all by just speed and amazing consistency. You cannot take it away from him. He did an awesome job. Well done to all of our competitors. Those that made it home. It was just great racing throughout the field. Yeah, a few mistakes here and there, but on the whole, that was absolutely fantastic. What a great way to advertise this series, and what an amazing racing we've enjoyed here today at Paul Ricard.
Absolutely, and we'll hopefully hear from the top three in a moment's time. We'll get them in for some interviews and ask them those hard-hitting questions we love to do. And realistically, for Robbie Stapleford, the main question we're going to ask him is, why'd you get the drive-through? Because otherwise there wasn't a huge amount to talk about. But it's one more thing than he had last week, because last week he was impervious and was by far and away quicker than everyone else. As we head on to, you see the highlights on the screen now, these brilliant sort of quick snap highlights of the main parts of the race. And like I said, Chris, it was one of those, wasn't it? I mean, we saw battles all the way up and down the field, didn't we? It was fantastic. Yeah. It was the Robbie Stapleford show to an extent, but they were absolutely brilliant tonight across the field, weren't they? The battling was fantastic.
Certainly was. As our interviewees come to join us, we have our podium three. All yours, Mr. Wressell.
Well, yeah, we'll start off as we always do with P1. Robbie, it was. I mean, let's face it. Qualifying was very, very, very close. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you did your pole time with one lap only, for starters. Is that right? Or did you do a couple?
No, that's right. One lap only.
I love to see that.
One lap wonders.
I did think it was very audacious of you to not come out at the end, but it seemed to pay dividends in the long run. The second thing I have to ask you, you were streets ahead again. It was shades of Silverstone. I said it to Chris in the broadcast before I started chatting to you guys. Everyone was really close in the one lap pace, but you seemed to be able to get really close to that qualifying lap on a number of occasions. Is that why the drive-through happened? And were you a little bit squirmy when that came up on your screen towards the end of the race there?
I think I set the car up just for pace, and towards the end of the stint it got a bit leery, and yeah, just through the quick right-hander just kept on going wide. So I just tried to get as big a gap as I could, knowing that I'll probably get a drive-through, and I got a drive-through, so it got a bit tight, but yeah, luckily we still got it.
Were you ever worried that you were going to come under fire from Dean because of that? Because it looked like from us, I mean, I was looking at the timing charts to see, obviously, as you can imagine, quite a few drive-throughs were given out tonight, given the track that we're at. But were you ever worried thinking that the drive-through and the time you had between yourself and Dean was going to disappear completely, or were you always confident you had that little bit of a buffer when that drive-through inevitably came up?
I didn't really know, because I didn't know how long the pit drive-through was, so I was just like, I remember him saying last time I was here that it was quite short, so I was like, it'll probably be close, but when it came out it was like 5 seconds, and I was like, cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, you made it difficult. You certainly made it more interesting from our perspective, because we thought you were going to bottle it at the end when you got the drive-through. I was a little bit worried for you, but thoughts ahead of Misano. What are your kind of feelings in general? Thoughts around that track? Is that one of your stronger tracks, or are you thinking that'd be a bit more difficult?
That would be Italian, wouldn't it?
I know you like to keep your cards close to your chest.
Really like Misano, so it should be a good one. Hopefully everybody practices a bit more.
Happy days. Well, fantastic again, Robbie. Like I say, faultless to a T, pole position, fastest lap, and the race win. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time, and I will, in the meantime, tell everyone to get more practice in so that we can have you under a little bit more pressure for the next one as well. Congratulations.
Yeah. Cheers, Dave.
We'll come across to our P2 man. It's certainly a better result than we had last week. Dean, congratulations on the P2, mate. Again, like I say, I'll ask you similar sort of questions to what I did to Robbie. When that drive-through came up, I'm sure you'd have seen it on your time in tower in the bottom corner. Were you thinking there was a potential chance to usurp and get a last-minute victory there?
To be honest, I didn't even see it, and I was like, "What's happened to Robbie?" I noticed he was within, say, 5 or 6 seconds. So I had no idea what went on, and I thought he must have spun, and then I didn't know whether his tyres might be done after he spun, but then obviously his pace is back there, and there's no chance to catch him again. So, yeah, I mean, I think week by week now, it's leave Robbie to run off in the distance, and we'll all fight for the scraps, I think.
Well, speaking of fighting for the scrap, I mean, P2's, I wouldn't necessarily say is the worst scrap in the world to fight for, but you certainly had a lot of battles in the first stint of that race between, our current P3 driver we'll talk to in a minute, and Jonathan Seville. What was that like from your perspective? Because obviously for the start, you held on to it really comfortably, but then you kind of dropped back and it was kind of dicey between the two. Chris and I were talking about it quite a bit. Were you ever in the position where you just kind of sat there and just let it run, or were you always trying to make the move? Because that slipstream's so powerful, isn't it, going down the back straight? Yeah,
I mean, my thought was that Jonathan had quite a bit more pace than me, so I wasn't too bothered about him getting past, because I thought we'll work together and get closer up to Robbie. But when I was behind him, I mean, his car looked pretty much undrivable. You know, he was holding us up like probably a second a lap on most laps. I mean, it looked an absolute handful. So yeah, that was I should have defended a bit harder and kept the position, because I had the pace to probably pull away from him. But at the beginning, I was just making small mistakes, and then it was giving him the opportunity. And obviously, he had a higher top speed than me, I think. Anyway, I think he was running less wings. So, yeah, the plan didn't really work. But even if it had pulled away from him, I think Robbie was too far gone, and yeah, he was untouchable. So like normal. So. Yeah.
And same to you, Dean. Thoughts ahead of Misano in a couple of weeks? A favourite track of yours, or one you prefer to? Or you need to get a lot of practice in, is probably the better way to ask that question.
To be honest, I think in the McLaren, they're all new tracks to me. I think the McLaren's probably holding me up a bit at the minute. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm just putting up with it for the time being. I just thought I'll take it because Robbie's got it. But yeah, I think I'm actually stronger in the other cars. So yeah, it was probably a mistake, but I think I can get that second place most weeks, and yeah, that's what my goal is at the minute, is just to get second and then change car, and then we'll hopefully challenge him on certain tracks next time.
Sounds good to me. Well, congratulations again, Dean. Like I say, much better performance this week. Didn't get caught up in the qualifying like we did at Silverstone a few weeks ago, and look forward to catching you again at Misano in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a lot.
And then last but not least, we'll head over to our final podium position driver. Rasmus, good result from you this evening. It looked to me, and don't take this the wrong way, it looked to me like it was going to be, you were going to be the one pipped to it by Jonathan, but he just seemed to disappear. I know you guys obviously were in a team together. Were you running slightly different setups, and he just maybe wasn't able to hold on to the car for as long, or were you always confident you were going to have the pace over him over the 90 minutes?
No, we were actually running the same setup. The setup was, first of all, incredibly hard to drive. It was so oversteery every single corner, and when the tires died out, the setup was just really, really oversteery, and you almost like had to correct every single of those like long corners. So the setup was just incredibly hard to drive, and I don't know, I think I just maybe managed it a bit better than Seville today. Yeah.
And like I say, I don't want to try and turn it into questions about Jonathan as well, but we saw him in the first stint almost just disappear down the timing charts, because I'm guessing the tyres went off. Again, is that maybe something to do with the way that you drive the car compared to him? Were you able to hold on to it more because you kept that pace throughout, didn't you? Effectively, you were pretty much, from what I could gather, within 3 or 4 seconds of Dean pretty much the entire way through after the first kind of 15-20 minutes ran. So were you like I say, it was difficult to drive. Were you comfortable with the way it was as the tyres started to lose their grip in life?
I mean, Seville, he said he had a big slide, which really messed up his tires. So that's why he also pitted early, so he could get new tires on, and he looked after them a bit better. And his second stint was a bit better, I think. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I think my driving style, I drive a bit more smooth than him. He drives a bit more aggressive than me. So yeah, I think that's really the difference that made it today.
Fair enough. That makes complete sense. And then finally, obviously we've got Misano in a couple of weeks, coming to that in a second, but a third and fourth in the race, or third and fifth, I think it was, in the race in the end. That's good for the Constructors' Championship. That's got to be something you guys are keeping a keen eye out for, because as a team you're performing really well so far. Is that something you've got your eye on over the final 4 rounds?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm just really focusing on doing the best I can to just bring the results home. So I don't know, I'm just really focusing on doing the best I can, not really thinking too much about the standings at the moment.
Well, I think it's safe to say that your focus is in the right place this evening with a fantastic P3. Rasmus, congratulations again, and hopefully we'll get to speak to you again in a couple of weeks at Misano if you're back on the podium there.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. There we go, guys. Thank you very much to our interviewer, our podium sitters for this evening. Of course, it was Robbie Stapleford who took the win from Dean Riley, and then Rasmus Christensen rounding out the podium. Chris, something appropriate has just appeared on the screen. What's coming up next Sunday? Something that you'll be, I'm sure, very much looking forward to, as am I as well, but in a different
Absolutely. So the Virtual Touring Car Cup is intersected with the GT3 League. So 1 week it's the VTCC, and the other week it is the GT3 League. Next time we are over to Poland, it's Tor Poznan for the touring cars, which is a very tight and twisty track. It's not necessarily one too well known across the board, but last season we had that, it was phenomenal. So very much look forward to that. And as David mentioned, it is myself and the commentary box with Aaron Martin Pilkington, and Mr. Wressell will be on track. We'll try and find you. But very much look forward to that. And this is how the GT3 season looks.
Absolutely, yeah. So as I mentioned a few times, we're off to Misano in a couple of weeks on the 3rd of October. We then head to a British double-header to the club circuits. They're affectionately called Snetterton, Donington Park. And then we finish off on the 14th of November at Suzuka to finish things off. Short 6 rounds, but as you saw there, plenty of action across each and every race to keep you entertained and busy. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure to commentate alongside you this evening. Any final words from yourself before we close off?
I mean, not that wouldn't go on for absolutely forever, but I mean, what a race we've had. It's an absolutely incredible set of racers and races that we've got for this league and also for the VTCC. But like mentioned earlier, if you wanted to sign up and get involved, sign-ups are open. By all means, sign up, get involved. You may have lunatics like us shouting about your on-track antics. It'll be a great pleasure. We always welcome new names and faces over here at SSR.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Chris, for joining me. That's been Chris Buxton alongside myself, David Wressell, and thank you as always to our broadcast director Steve Proudley, and a shout out, I know he's listening, to Cam Fife, who's been spotting for Steve as well, and finding all the action and helping him navigate, because there's been plenty to keep an eye on this evening. We will see you in a week's time at Tor Poznan, as Chris has mentioned, for the VTCC. For GT3s, we'll catch you in 2 weeks' time at Misano. But for between now and then, it's been an absolute pleasure to host this stream. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you guys again very, very soon. Thank you very much for watching as always. Take care. Bye-bye.